And so I think it's important that we work through each of these topics today. Staff has done just a great job of preparing for these particular topics. A lot of this is annual in nature, as you know, as we review documents, we reapprove agreements such as insurance renewals, and all of those will be a part of that. I would like to also, before we move forward into the first topic today, just share a little bit about where we are and all of the challenges that have come forward to us, just being as clear and transparent as possible. You know, responding to COVID this year has been a very fluid and challenging experience. Staff members and parents have been very supportive during this challenging, stressful public health situation. We're very appreciative of the patience and understanding shown while we've implemented safe school protocols that are much more significant than any change in school operations that I'm ever aware of that we've ever done in the past. And finally, this spring we are observing, and it's just kind of that light at the end of the tunnel, we're observing a reduction in the COVID threat by way of reduced cases, lower positive testing results, and the availability of vaccines to any adult desiring to be vaccinated, and in fact seeing those vaccinations go to younger and minors as well. And that's an important part, because what it does is we're seeing the responsibility of our communities and our society to COVID to becoming much more individual and personal and family. And so I think the sustainability over time, it's important that we start to recognize that, and as we plan forward that we do that. You know, in recent weeks, we received increasing communication from some members of our community requesting a reduction in the school health protocols. And the most polarizing issue is the mandatory mask wearing requirement in our schools. And it's not just in schools. If you watch today's news, you see that it's throughout society, a fatigue regarding mask wearing and a real desire to move forward. On our May 11th school board meeting, the school district and our board listened to many community members opposing mandatory mask wearing, and complying with the public request to remove a mask requirement on the spot without assessing the impact of doing so would really have been disruptive to the final weeks of the school year. You know, this week my own son is having FSA testing today and yesterday, and any efforts to restructure, reorganize could have been hurtful to kids and their ability to complete the school year. And so we've also received communication asking for the district to continue with mask requirements and continue until, in some cases, until all school-age children can receive COVID vaccinations. So somewhere in the end, no matter what decision is made, it won't be to the complete satisfaction of every member of our community. So we're going to have to make decisions that we feel are the best. Knowing this is becoming a more divisive issue in our community, as superintendent, I did feel it important to be transparent and to share as much information as rapidly as we could. And so the importance of sharing the direction of the school district for this summer and next year I felt was important. There's several factors that go into establishing health and safety protocols for students, families, and staff. The school district has always had a partnership with the local health department, and we continue to work closely with them regarding COVID. As we know, it's the local health department that is responsible for the quarantining and the processes of that contact tracing that results in some impacts to our schools. And the health department and the school district, we both utilize the expertise of the Florida Department of Health and federal health agencies, such as the CDC being one of those. You know, in the same week of our May school board meeting, the state and national data being released showed a continued reduction in positive cases and increases in the percentage of people being vaccinated, all favorable data as we move forward. And although there's no defined percentage of data numbers that determine protocols, there's no threshold to say at this point we will do X. We do have to look at all of it together. And we also know we need to plan forward, and parents need to know our intent as soon as possible. Although it's important to understand the perspective of parents, safety protocols should not be determined by a survey vote or a popularity vote. They need to be determined by what's really the safest and the best interest of our school system. And it's my job and the job of our staff to develop the most appropriate safety protocols. Certainly there will be a disagreement on what these should be, and we're going to make decisions that are both safe and sustainable as we move out of this public health crisis. You know, we've communicated the intent to change our mask recommendations beginning June 14th, and that begins our summer programs, our summer camps, and those kinds of things. Just as last year we began protocols that were fairly restricted with our summer camps, we feel like in this situation where it is a parent and a family option to participate, that we will begin the new, less restrictive protocols moving forward into the next maybe phase, if we want to call it, of dealing with COVID. And so we will provide a more comprehensive health and safety plan to the board later this summer as we refine that. But I needed to share this early on to say, if you're going to participate in summer programs, we are going to make some changes as to how we make those happen. Our school board has been amazing throughout this pandemic, and by quickly sharing our plan to revise our protocols on May 14th, I certainly did not intend to conflict with any statements or commitments that they've made. They have been amazing throughout this process, and I just want to reinstate that. It's important that our parents and community continue to provide feedback as we plan for the next school year. And it is important to remind our parents that the school-based virtual platform that is closing out this year is not an option for next year. And I know we have communicated that somewhat, but I just feel like I need to restate that again, that school-based distance learning is not going to be an academic option for next year. It will be brick and mortar or St. John's Virtual School. And so just wanted to share that information as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Forson. Before we move on, I'd like to just respond a little bit to some of the things you said. You know, it has been such a difficult year, more than a year now, and it's been difficult, I think, for all the families, the children, the teachers, the principals, the district, trying to, you know, find the path that's best for all, and that's not always easy. I know, I feel fortunate that, and I think we all should, that we had our schools open this year. There are schools in different states that haven't opened yet, and I just saw one news account yesterday that they plan to open in September. And so that makes me feel like we did something special to make sure we got our children back into school, because I think everyone agrees that in-school learning is superior to something online. But I've said from the beginning, I think sometime maybe back in a year ago, March, that our decisions should never be political. It's not the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to try to hear from the folks who know what they're doing, and I'm talking about healthcare professionals, and make decisions from there. And I think that's what we did last year. I think with the direction of Mr. Forson and the staff, after he was consulting with different healthcare officials, we decided to come up with some standards and return to school. The mask issue, you know, it seems to me the whole society is moving towards less restrictions. I know we had the school board meeting a few weeks ago, and there were many parents that wanted the mask removed that day. I didn't agree with that process. I didn't agree with disrupting in the end of the year with only weeks to go. However, since then, things have changed to some extent. The numbers, as Mr. Forson indicates, have come down. Vaccinations are up, and the CDC has changed its recommendations. Mask is definitely more of an option in our culture and in our state now. And so for those reasons, I think that Mr. Forson and his staff have made the correct decision. And although these decisions will be ratified by the board next month, unless things change, if the circumstances change, and of course they could, I intend to support the district's decision to make masks optional for kids. The parents still have an option to have their kids wear a mask if they'd like, but the parents also have an option to not have the kids wear a mask. And I think that's a reasonable and sort of a logical progression here to where we've come over these last 14 or 15 months. We've climbed the mountain, and hopefully we seem like we're coming down the hill, and that seems to be the next step. And I applaud Mr. Forson and the staff for letting parents know early for the summer, because otherwise everyone's sitting around trying to figure out what they're going to do and what's good for their children. So that gives some direction to parents. So I just wanted to make that clear. So now, unless there's any further comment from the board.
I did want to say one thing. Yesterday, I was on a call of only about 60 or 70 people with the U.S. Secretary of Education, and he pretty much outlined exactly what we're doing. Open your schools, make masks optional, let's get back to normal. So even from the United States Secretary of Education, we're hearing the same message. So I fully affirm everything that our superintendent has done and appreciate his leadership.
Thank you, Ms. Lau. So let's move to our first workshop topic, which is the FEFP budget update. Mr. Forson.
Thank you, Mr. Canan, and our Chief Finance Officer, Ms. Gretchen Saunders, is going to present to you the budget update. As you know, annually, as the legislative session closes out, it's not until that time we really understand what the financial landscape is for our coming year. And so with that, Ms. Saunders is going to share where we are and where we're headed in the coming school year.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Just a quick, we just had a couple of slides we want to present to you. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an overview of the spring legislative session regarding the financial impact for Florida school districts. Our topics we'll be covering today include the 2021 legislative session, the 2021 final conference report, and the budget challenges ahead. As you can see on the slide presented, the funding process for the next school year began in January of 2021. The governor released his budget, his recommended budget, and it's a comparison of his budget versus the second calculation from the fall. If you look at his proposal, it showed a $132.02 increase in the base student allocation. The total funds per FTE changed by $232.69, and an overall total funds increase of $8,019.30. The next update came from the House on April 1st. They proposed a plan to increase the base student allocation by $52.11, a total per FTE change of $181.38, and a total funds per FTE increase of $7,967.99. And we can't forget the Senate. They came back with their proposal on April 19th, and they proposed a base student allocation change of $80.34. Their total change per FTE went down $197.41. But their total funds per student FTE was $7,800.95. With that being said, we knew we were going to land somewhere in the middle. On April 27th, the legislative conference report was released. And as we continue to review the conference report, we wanted to just give you the highlights. But we need to consider 2 years in review, and this is based on COVID, based on everything we've never seen in the history of the FEFP. We need to look at not just last year, but this year and next year together. Funding and other items held harmless in this school year pursuant to the Florida Department of Education's emergency orders in its 2020-EO-06 and 2020-EO-07. The fourth calculation of this year included an adjustment to ensure that each school district that experienced a reduction in funding would receive the same funding as calculated in their calculation in the fall. So as the governor said and the Commissioner of Education, they wanted to hold everybody harmless if the students didn't show up. The adjustment also provided funding for each district that may have experienced growth in the FEFP in the fourth calculation. The emergency funding order, and in your handout, there's a couple of extra pages, and I noted the page numbers at the bottom to go with the slide. So if you'll see item 3A, this is the fourth calculation statewide summary page, and if you'll look, we highlighted the line that said emergency order funding adjustment to show that on the table for the states and the district was $540,878,164. So that with that adjustment being in place, that came out of the governor's emergency orders 6 and 7. But in order for the state to recoup these dollars, they had to have a forward funding adjustment out of next year. So what are we going to do for that? Let me jump back, I'm sorry. On page 3B, I wanted to give you the breakdown to the column all the way over on the right of the districts that were receiving extra dollars and that those were being held harmless. So you'll see it's very small print, I'm sorry. But you'll see all the way over on the right-hand column, it says emergency order number 7, funding adjustment. And as I like to say, this is our People magazine of the financial world, because you can really dig deep into what's going on in the other school districts. On the left-hand side, you can see it's broken down by districts. And if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see that number tied to $540,878,164. So that was the money that was provided to us from the legislature, and I mean us, the state of Florida, all the school districts, and charter schools. But what I wanted you to note on the third page, 3C, this is the public schools funding summary is a comparison of what we talked about, or the fourth calculation for this year and the first calculation for next year. And you can see along the bottom, there's a line that's highlighted. It said total funds per FTE, and it's highlighted in the third column, or the second column from the right. And you'll see the negative $203.29 per student. But what we've been hearing out of Tallahassee and around the state is actually school districts received $38.71 positive per student, but that's only if we wouldn't have been held harmless. So when I say the districts that state had to recoup the money, so we were given that $500 million as a hold harmless, but it had to come back from somewhere. So that's why going into the next school year, we're actually down $203.29 per student. And that's why we put a line there, because a lot of folks really don't know how to read the FEFP calculations, and they just go to the bottom line. We've all experienced it. That's the easiest thing to go to, but there was a little change up this year, and we wanted to point it out, just so everybody made aware of it. And a lot of people are asking, where did that money come from? Well, if you'll note a little further up, I highlighted the class size reduction allocation. Well, we funded our own hold harmless because they took the money out of the class size allocation. So just a little tidbit I wanted to throw out there for everybody. But we're still appreciative. All the districts in the state that receive those dollars are very appreciative to get them through this year. So there we are with the conference report. On the next page, I just wanted to provide you with a couple of highlights for the statewide increase. The required local effort millage statewide maintained the 2021 millage rates. In St. Johns County, our millage rates have been reduced by 1.275 mils over the last 5 years. Regarding the base student allocation, again, it increased $53.42, and currently we're receiving $4,319.49, and next year it will grow to $4,372.91. A few of the other categories at the bottom, the total funds per student, the FEFP, we talked about, decreased $203.29, or approximately 2.54%. We just talked about the class size reduction allocation decreasing $308 million. We're in year 2 of the teacher salary increase allocation, and they added $50 million into the statewide bucket. And the new reserve, there's a new reserve allocation, and it's the student reserve allocation for 21-22 school year, and it's $464 million. And you're like, wow, that's a lot of money. How do we get that? Well, it's been set aside now. We don't have any complete verbiage. We don't have anything in writing. This is just what we've heard. Those dollars have been set aside for the growing school voucher and scholarship programs for the state, and then for any financial prorations or adjustments that may occur to school districts after July 1st. That's the only way we can touch that money. So there isn't anything earmarked right now for anybody other than for the voucher programs, or if we see a decline in state revenues. The teacher salary increase allocation is in year 2, as I stated. This category grew by $50 million. And as a reminder, it's broken up into 2 different buckets. There's an 80% allocation. It's used to increase the minimum base teacher starting salary to at least $47,500, or to a maximum achievable based on the district's allocation. The remaining 20% is used for what's defined in section 1011.62. So it's very prescribed on what we can use these dollars for. Included in the statute is our classroom teachers and any certified pre-K teachers funded through the FEFP, but does not include substitute teachers. And then just as a reminder, in this year, we were able to, with our allocation, bring the beginning teacher salary to $45,535. And just a quick calculation of, well, because I know you're thinking, well, how much would it take for us to get to our teachers to $47,500? We'll need just roughly before taxes, on top of it, about $2.3 million. And our allocation this next school year for this categorical is just a little over $1 million. So we're slowly getting there. This is just another comparison we wanted to show you. I know I should have made it a little bit bolder so everybody could see it, but this is just a comparison. I know we keep talking about the 4th calculation, but for those of us in the audience that don't really know what that means, school districts in Florida are funded by what I lovingly refer to as cheeks in the seats. If the students are here, then we're funded for them. So the FTE is the full-time equivalent, or our students. So in the 4th calculation, in St. Johns County, we had 44,189.82 students, and next year our projection grows to 46,091.53. And you're probably thinking, how do you have 0.2 of a student? Where does 0.53 come from? Well, those are some of our homeschool kids or private school kids that actually take classes with the district, so they may only be taking a credit or 2, but that's where the little N dollars come from. But our increase, projected increase for next year of students are 1,901 students. Again, we already talked about the base student allocation growing by $53.42, and we talked about the funds per student decreasing $50.60 for St. Johns County. The bottom half of that slide above shows we were prorated $932,165 in the 4th calculation, and that did not carry over to the conference report. You can see our allocation for class size. We have received in this year $49,079,610, and we're going to be dropped by $2.7 million, because remember the dollars they pushed aside for that new categorical. So we lost $2.7 million. I just have to keep the school recognition and lottery line up there, because we don't think it's coming back. That was, back in the early 80s, we pushed for the lottery money, and it was supposed to help school districts, and last year it was vetoed, and this year it's not even, I don't even think it's a whisper that it's going to be coming to school districts. So that was just my little rant, sorry. The other one, the discretionary millage, went up $1.5 million. So for the next school year, based on right now, we're going to be receiving I'm rounding, $12.5 million in new funds. Yes, ma'am.
So Greta, just for clarification, that $2.7 million went into the school voucher program?
School voucher / in case districts need to be held harmless for next year funding. Yeah. But again, we haven't seen that in writing anywhere. We don't have it in documents or a technical assistance note yet. But good question. So what does $12,501,448 really mean to St. Johns County School District? Well, that's our growth in revenue, but we have to take off categories that are either mandated or because of growth. So our first line is for growth. It's $8.3 million, and we are opening 2 new schools, a high school and a K-8. We've got to cover principals, APs, custodians. We do have 1,900 new students coming to our district. We've got an increase in utilities, student supplies, textbooks, fuel, needs for our buses, and then additionally, the needs of the state mandated categories, such as the ESE guarantee allocation. Those dollars are set aside for us to help our students that have IEPs, and their matrix levels are 1, 2, or 3. We also have a safe school categorical, the mental health allocation, the instructional materials allocation, the teacher classroom supply allocation, the digital classroom allocation, student transportation allocation, supplemental academic instruction categorical, supplemental reading, the DJJ supplement. Again, I had to put the school recognition and lottery money on there to show 0. And then we've got the teacher salary increase allocation. And the reason I wanted to read through those are mandated by the state. So even though our district is receiving $12.5 million, those dollars have to come off the top and they've got to go into their individual categories. So when you look at the bottom line, the net funds available for our growth and everything else that we need going forward, $868,506. And what will we have to spend those dollars on? The additional items we look at and plan for are very similar to your own household budgets. A rate increase for the Florida retirement system, the board obligation payments went up. We talked about growth of the new schools. We've got an increase in the mental health programs, and the safe school activities have increased along with the additional student transportation needs. And this includes the new routes for our new students coming to the district. The school board portion for health insurance is projected to increase by 1%. And we've just covered the teacher salary increase, and we must always be cognizant of the Florida statute reserve requirements on our overall financial conditions. Now let's put some dollars on those. So our net funds available are $886,506, but what has to come off of that? Our portion of the Florida Retirement Employer Contribution is $2.1 million. We have an ELA adoption for our textbooks for all grades. So the textbook allocation coming in wasn't enough to cover the cost of the books, so we have to come up with $420,410. We have our youth resource deputies, and that increase is $307,422. Our medical insurance we just spoke of will have an increase. Our reserve requirements on our revenue coming in is 3%, so that increase is $349,110. We did a 3-year trend on our substitutes only because of our different last 3 years. So we show an increase of $325,088. We talked about the increase in student transportation of $816,000. And of course, we talked about utilities, $543,000. So what we started with, $868,506, we're actually having to find $4.4 million to cover all of our increasing needs for our school district. When we look at our general fund balance, this is based as of June 30th, 2020, and these are based on the 9-year trend data of audited financials. So you can see on the left, it's from June 30th, 2012 through June 30th, 2020. And it's a little bit difficult to see, but the first line, the pale blue line, all the way at the bottom, consists of non-spendable dollars set aside for our inventory, which includes tires, maintenance items, fuel, and any prepaid amounts that we might have done. Any items that cannot be converted to cash, that cannot be converted. That's what makes up the non-spendable category. The orange line, or the restricted line, goes to if we have dollars rolling forward in any of those categoricals, such as instruction materials, or which normally we don't. But if it's set aside, it's got to be set aside, or local grants, anything that is in the general fund that we have to set aside. The gray line, it's just up a little bit on the bottom, that's our committed line. And the district established an economic stabilization arrangement in Board Rule 7.01, and that states that any new revenue, we set aside 3% to meet anything in our district that may be non-routine, such as this last year. All of the things we had to purchase, all the PPE, just you name it, what we had to cover that I don't think any school district could have planned for. two more lines. We've got the yellow line, that's our assigned line, that's intended to be used for a purpose that may exist just temporarily. It could be a one-time need that we might need to use those dollars for. And then the dark blue line, those are amounts not classified in any of the above, and that's unassigned. Now, let's put some numbers on those. And you'll see the breakdown here. Again, this is the 9-year trend data, broken out at the top between non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. If you look down at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see, or the bottom line, which shows our assigned and unassigned, and you can see where we're at and where we've come from. And just as you all know, for the school districts that are issuing debt because of school growth, anything that they're doing, the rating agencies really like to have school districts push to an 18 to 20% fund balance, assigned and unassigned, or depending on how you look at it. Our trend always in school districts as finance officers are always to have 2 months of revenues on hand or dollars on hand in case something should happen, whether it's a hurricane comes through and shuts everything down. I remember in 2004, Hurricane Charlie came and wiped out Charlotte County, and we had to provide a lot of help for Charlotte County. We did their financials to the state because it was right around their final public hearing in September or late August. So again, it's just, can you make your ends meet? Just like you would, it's what any financial advisor is going to tell you when you go meet individually. Have 2 months in your savings account to cover you in case you have a loss of, could be anything. And the last slide, this is a very interesting slide, and it tells so much information. As a final comparison, I know you're familiar with these two charts. The first chart on the left shows the 2010-2011 budget, and we compare it to the 21-22 budget. So what does it show? Well, we've grown from the 2010-11 budget by $22.5 billion, and you can see the state budget increased overall by $31.1 billion, and the education portion increased from 2010-11 to 21-22 by $7.6 billion. The education portion in 21-22 is only 30% of the pie. It used to be 32% of the pie, and we have more students in the state. In general, we are very grateful for the folks in Tallahassee to hold our school districts harmless. And at the same time, we know the education piece is getting smaller while our expenses are continuing to grow. Does anybody have any questions? Again, more information will be forthcoming as soon as we receive it, and we're starting our budget season soon, so we'll be review it.
Questions from Cyrus? Next topic is talk about the insurance renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Dan, and thank you, Ms. Saunders, for that, because you know that's what you just heard in the background, the budget bill is going to take place over the next 2 months that you'll eventually vote on and make some critical decisions regarding. And so our next item is our insurance renewal, and I believe, again, Ms. Saunders is going to introduce our Assistant Director of Risk Management and take us through what those numbers look like in the year ahead.
I'm back. Okay. Now we can come all over the So this morning, we're going to talk about 2 different categories of insurance. We're going to cover one piece on property casualty auto. There's a whole line of coverages, and then Mr. Nickam from our risk management department is going to talk about our student accident insurance. And even though this is really small, I'm sorry. We'll make sure it's larger when we post it on the agenda item. But again, we have 2 insurance renewals coming to you this morning. This first one is with the Florida School Board's Trust Insurance, also known as FSBIT, which covers all of our insurances except for student accident insurance and the health insurance program. FSBIT was organized by the Florida School Board Association under Florida law, and we have been an active member since July 2008. There are currently 12 districts in the trust. They include St. Johns County, Okaloosa, Alachua, Santa Rosa, Charlotte, Citrus, Okeechobee, Suwannee, Gadsden, Taylor, Madison, and Lafayette. Our school district is the largest in the pool, and Lafayette is the smallest.
insurance line. The St. Johns County School District's total insurable value for the 21-22 school year is more than $1.234 billion. This covers all of our buildings and contents. A few of the highlights for the next school year property policy component is that we're going to maintain the $250 million limit per occurrence of any type of property damage for the trust. We will continue to have a $5,000 deductible for each occurrence except for named storms in this category. There is a $100,000 minimum deductible with a 3% named storm deductible per building, and it contains a no maximum cap clause. Our renewal rate for next year came in at approximately 15% over this year. The total trust values have increased by 1.18%, of which St. Johns County School Board makes up approximately 20% of the trust. Our renewal rate is 19 cents per $100 of total insured value, as compared to this year, where we were at 16 cents or 0.1697 cents per $100 of total insured value. The FSBIT Executive Committee and Rate Setting Committee voted again to use a $1 million offset of reserve dollars to help cover the new costs of the trust, the same as it did this year. Our total net increase for St. Johns County for property insurance equals $347,142. Additionally, this does include a $25 million cap for terrorism coverage. The total insurable value did go up for our county for a couple of reasons. We did have the Liberty Pines Academy expansion, and then we also had to purchase additional portables and the contents in those portables. FSBIT annually contracts for actuarial studies, and in those actuarial studies, we have a 1% trending cost increase. So our values went up for the district by approximately $20 million just based on those three categories. The second category covers equipment breakdown. The equipment breakdown coverage is for all of our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing type system breakdowns throughout the district. We have a $5,000 deductible. The total premium for the 21-22 fiscal year is $24,430, or a slight increase of $186. The next category is our general liability and school board legal liability. These coverages protect against any third-party claims arising from either bodily injury or third party's property damage. The school board legal liability is coverage that protects the board members and employees against claims alleging errors and omissions in the execution of their duties. For the 21-22 school year, our premium for this coverage is $692,395, or an increase of $69,874. Most of this year's increase is due to both the increasing trend of liability lawsuits and increasing from the base coverage of $1 million to a total of $5 million. We jumped that coverage up for us by $4 million. Through conversations with FSBIT representatives, Ms. Slough, our school board member and co-chair of FSBIT, Mr. Upchurch and Mr. Forson, a decision was made to increase liability limits due to the growing national trend of increased federal lawsuits, out-of-state claims, as well as Florida tort claim bills, most of which we've had exposure to in the last few years. The next category is our auto liability. Our increase for our auto liability is $29,946. This coverage protects against an occurrence of bodily injury, property damage, maintenance, or use of any of our district vehicles. Our total number of vehicles covered in the 21-22 school year equals 427, which is an increase of 34 vehicles over this year. And of course, everybody knows our favorite yellow school buses make up the majority of the district vehicles, with the other vehicles consisting of staff cars, vans, trucks, box trucks, and dump trucks. Our next category is our workers' comp component, and workers' comp covers bodily injury by accident because one's employment or in the line of work duty. The workers' comp premium is $2,307,982, or approximately an increase of approximately $232,911. The increase is based on what they consider our district experience or our claims
our number of claims, payroll amounts, or job classifications. The district's covered payroll for the 21-22 year is approximately $223.5 million, which is based on our estimates and projections. The pollution legal liability is the next line item we're going to talk about, and this covers environmental incidents, including indoor air quality, such as mold and mildew. The total cost for the 21-22 fiscal year is $7,753, and it's the first installment of a 3-year policy agreement. The increase of $523 is due to the district size relative to the other districts in the trust and the start of a new 3-year policy. The next category is our special contingency risk, and this is coverage to assist us with recovery from any traumatic events. Such items may include counseling, extra security, transportation, etc. That premium is up $98 to a total of $19,229. This is the third payment of a 3-year agreement. The next category covers tenant users and liability. The St. John, we do not actually participate in this program. However, many of the others in the trust do. And what this coverage is, it covers tenants of district buildings who need ad hoc insurance coverage for their event, for which they cannot or are not covered under their current insurance program. But again, we don't utilize this in our county. Our crime policy, or our crime line, protects against employee theft, forgery, alteration, robbery, computer fraud, and various other categories. The 21-22 premium is $4,420, up $482 from the previous year, and this is the third payment of a 3-year agreement. Our cyber insurance is, we all know it's been in the headlines, and we're still waiting on quotes. There's various entities. FSBIT has reached out to insurance companies, but because this is such a hot topic, not just within public schools, but private sector, but again, the focus is on school districts, not just in Florida, but around the country. You've seen it in Broward County, you've seen it in Manatee County, you've seen it in the Midwest. But again, the team at FSBIT are working to collect quotes and data in the next 7 to 10 days. So we will provide you with more additional information as soon as it becomes available. Last year, our quote, we paid $16,783 for our premium, and this year, we know it's going to be up there.
I just wanted to interject that
Please.
It's not FSBIT's fault we don't have those quotes yet. We've been asking for the quotes, and they just have not come, but we're promised them in the next 10 days.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And finally, our casualty loss fund. The casualty reinsurer will provide FSBIT with a loss fund number based on actuarial analysis at 100%. The FSBIT rate committee and board then decide each renewal what percentage to fund this account for, which is usually between 75 and 80%. The fund pays out our general liability, auto liability, school board, legal liability, and workers' compensation claims. It will also pay out any cyber and crime claims as needed. The allocation pricing for this loss fund for each member is based on a weighted average formula which consists of 70% losses and 30% exposure. With that, I'm going to bring up Miss Amanda Gumbel to talk about our student insurance.
Good morning, Mr. Force and board members. This morning I am presenting our review of the student accident renewal for the 2021-2022 school year. So we will just start with the insurance requirements under FHSAA. For those of you that don't know, that's the Florida High School Athletic Association, and they help organize the interscholastic athletic programs at participating schools and the high school athletes that participate in these programs. And there's a list of the sports that are included under that association. And they have 3 different insurance requirements of the school district. So the first is an athletic medical base plan. And what this is just proof that every athlete that's participating in one of these sports has health coverage. In the event that they don't, the school either needs to give them an opportunity to purchase this health coverage, or they need to purchase a blanket plan that provides the coverage for these students. And the minimum coverage limit for this line is $25,000. The second requirement is the accident medical expense and catastrophe cash benefit policy. So if a participant were to experience a catastrophic injury, this benefit would be covering the medical expenses, and if they sustained a permanent injury, there would be a cash benefit potentially available to them as well. The minimum coverage limit for the medical expense component is $1 million, and the cash benefit limit is $500,000. And then the third requirement is general liability, and this coverage is warranted to us through our casualty policy with FSBIT. So when we renew that policy each year, we send a certificate of insurance to the Florida High School Athletic Association, just proving that we do in fact have this coverage, and we meet the minimum requirements that are written in the policy for FHSAA.
Amanda, on this, I don't see competitive dance. Is that covered under competitive cheerleading?
No, ma'am. These are the sports, I pulled these right off of their website, so these are the ones that are actively covered under FHSAA. Okay. All right, so what we are proposing is what we have done in years past, which is provide the first and second requirements to all of our students, not just those participating in interscholastic athletic sports. So this would meet both the first and second requirement under FHSAA, but it would cover all our students. So that would expand the different covered activities. So if a student were to become injured in recess activities or in the classroom or on the school bus, a field study, there's just a lot more. The umbrella is much larger for claims that could be filed under this policy. And there's quite a few benefits to that. If a student sustains an injury and their family does not have health coverage, this will pay primary for the injury subject to a deductible. If they do have primary coverage, it pays secondary. So it can kind of help just offset some of those out-of-pocket expenses that a family could potentially incur. And it helps decrease the type of claims that are submitted to our general liability policy and can shield the district from liability suits. So last year, we went with QBE, which was the carrier. We use a TPA called BMI benefits. So no matter what carrier we go through, we're working with the same TPA each year. So the process is similar for the school. They're in the group with what they've been doing, so we just want to keep that going. But the carrier last year was QBE. We met all the minimum benefits under FHSAA. We went with a $250 deductible, and that's for the medical base plan component, and the premium was $598,000 with a 2-year benefit period, meaning a student has an opportunity to seek medical treatment for 2 years following their date of injury, and they can file a claim for the payment of those treatments. And then for this year, we went out to market, and QBE actually came back as the best again at $588,000, so it's actually less than last year. And I know there's been interest in the past to see a higher deductible, so we also quoted at a $500 deductible, and QBE came back the best for that as well, and it dropped our premium by about $22,700. But just also keeping in mind that $500 deductible might not be palatable for some families, whereas $250 is more attainable. So excuse me. And here's just a side-by-side of insurance premiums from the past 2 years and this upcoming school year. As you can see, BMI, the TPA, did work with us each of those years. QBE was our carrier last year. Caitlin was our carrier the year before, and this just breaks down the premiums based on the first and second requirements for the FHSAA. And then we broke it down to the rate per student. So last year we were paying approximately $13.84 per student, whereas this year it will be $13.11, assuming we go with the $250 deductible. And here's just some claims data. From the 2018-2019 school year, we had 267 claims. The total amount incurred, this was not the amount paid out, but before all the reductions in medical bills, we incurred $4 million. And as of 4/30, $476,586.77 was paid out. Keeping in mind there is a 2-year benefit period, so this total amount paid out will continue to increase more than likely. And you can see last year, the number was down a little bit. You know, the last couple months of school, we didn't have too much activity going on, so there weren't as many opportunities for claims to be filed because students weren't in school sustaining injury. And then this is just an overview of this past school year, kind of the breakdown of where the claims were falling under what activities and what sports. You can see football was kind of the heavy hitter, but you know, there's a little bit, the injuries kind of dabbled in all different areas, different sports, PE, recess, and just something else to keep in mind. This was as of April 30th, so some of the spring sports hadn't completely wrapped up yet, whereas football was pretty much done. So this, you know, would change by if we reevaluated or re-looked at it at the end of June. Are there any questions?
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
And I think you said, I just want to make sure I'm clear on it. On the medical base, the 25,000 per injury,
Correct.
so every child is theoretically covered, but if they have a primary health insurance, that's the primary?
Correct, correct. So there is the $250 deductible, but if primary is maxed out or there's out of pockets, once that $250 is met, we can tap into the secondary policy to offset those expenses.
I
Or if
see.
you max out like a physical therapy benefit under your primary, the secondary would kick in at that point.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
And this applies to both private and Medicaid, Medicare?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, I think that's it. Thank you very much. We'll now move to our third item on the workshop topic list of health services update.
Thank you, Mr. Canan, and I introduce Mr. Kyle Dresbeck, or I believe Melissa probably is just going to take off with it as the Health Service Director for our school system.
Good morning. As Mr. Forson said, there is much business to conduct today, so I greatly appreciate the time to just present the role our nurses have played this year, so thank you for your time. It's been a challenging year. Definitely across the board, across our state. And having school nurses has really been beneficial for our school district on so many levels. A special thanks to Mr. Mignon for always supporting health services from the very beginning, and to our board for recognizing that having school nurses allows teachers to do their job so that nurses can take care of the rest for health conditions. This is just a basic overview of the nurse's typical role that is dictated by the Florida statutes 381.0056. These are the requirements of a school health program. School nurses have been, as you can see, long playing a role in health and safety of students and staff. They act as case managers, they consult with physicians and therapists and parents and teachers to get that child who's got a medical condition transitioned into the school day and help them function at their best during the school day. They administer medications, they provide emergency care. Today, our school clinics are filled with more prescription medication than ever before. That's just a reflection of the day that we live in. But in addition to that, having the nurse there to provide those services, she may not be there. She may be called to an emergency. She may be in another crucial event. So we're, in addition, training staff members, that may be secretaries or registrars or clerks, to assist when the nurse isn't available. We also have those students going out on field studies, and they play athletics, and maybe they're in extended day programs. So we're training lots of staff members to step up and administer meds, and sometimes even to perform medical procedures. Not all, but some. We also provide health education to students. We do mandated health screenings for all kindergartners, first graders, third graders, and sixth graders. And then we, thanks to our IT department, have an electronic medical record for each student, so we maintain those treatment records just like in a doctor's office. School nursing is really providing health care in a school setting, but that can be very, very challenging. Today's student body looks a lot different. It does each and every year. We have more students with complex medical procedures, as well as more students who have asthma and diabetes and life-threatening allergies and seizure disorders and cardiac conditions. We also have an increase in students with mental health issues that also need to be addressed. And while nurses aren't mental health counselors, those students a lot of times wind up in the clinic with somatic issues that need an assessment. They need to be triaged as to where they go to get their services. So that takes time as well. School nursing is also a very autonomous job. You may be the only medical professional on the entire campus, so a lot comes their way, and they are expected to show up every day with a skill set and a knowledge base to intervene in any emergency that comes their way, whether it's a child having an emergency or a grandparent visiting on campus. So there's a lot expected of them. There's also managing of chronic health conditions. We're filling that role of not only managing them while they're at school, but teaching them how to become independent with the disease process that they will live with for the rest of their lives. So helping them to get a little more autonomous on their own, but that takes time. And then, of course, responding to emergencies, that's a given as well. And school nurses are student advocates. We really are the voice to promote and work towards a safe school environment, a safe classroom environment, help the teacher feel comfortable as well while the student is learning, and parents can go to work and know that their child can be healthy at school. So that's really the everyday role of the school nurse until this year. With COVID, we all saw so many challenges across our nation, across our state. We definitely did. One of our biggest challenges beginning was just receiving clear and consistent information. That was not specific to us, that was in general. That's really still, to a degree, an issue now. It's very hard to follow the guidelines as they change frequently. So early on as a district, Mr. Forson, Mr. Dressback, all of us trying to get together and follow the guidelines, follow those health agencies that have that role, and trying to stick to them as best we could, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the CDC. And like I said, as they changed frequently, it was tough to keep up, definitely. So as you also know, the really change has been the only thing we've seen that's been consistent in the pandemic. So following the process, trying to diligently communicate and explain every change to parents, to staff, even to students, while we all struggled to keep up with it, but we did a good job. Contact tracing is a statutory responsibility of the Department of Health, public health agency. Obviously, our Department of Health was overwhelmed and bombarded with the community at large, so school nurses had to play a role in contact tracing, and that was sometimes a pretty insurmountable task at the school level. But we did implement some mitigating measures that helped to make that process as efficient as we could. When the Department of Health notified us of a positive case, we were able to give them the information they needed, and they were able to move forward with contact tracing and making the decisions that needed to be made. Another struggle, a challenge, was really just the education piece for parents, for staff, for everyone. There was a lot of confusion, a lot of information out there that had to be digested and processed, and being the only medical person on the campus, there was a lot of time to be spent comforting people and when they were afraid. It was a burden on the schools when contact tracing was going on, and there was a notice that there was a positive case, or there was a cluster of close contacts that needed to get out of the building. Everybody in those schools, administrators, principals, APs, secretaries, anybody they could get together with the nurse to stop that process during the day and start pulling students and doing what the Department of Health required of us, and it was a huge undertaking. And sometimes it happened every day, and sometimes at a few of our schools it happened several times a day. So it really was a layer of work on everyone that I don't think any of us saw coming, but they did an amazing job. Our school staff did an amazing job. Another challenge was managing multiple health rooms. We've never had that in a school setting. We've had a clinic, and we managed everything in the clinic. And this year, going into the school year, the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, even the National Association of School Nurses said, we need everybody to have an isolation room for anybody who's identified as positive and anyone who has any symptoms, symptomatic. And I don't know if you remember the list of symptoms the CDC came out with. It was a laundry list of symptoms. So we really leaned on the American Academy of Pediatrics to help us narrow that list specifically to children. So that was very beneficial. But managing multiple health rooms really was a struggle to have the appropriate equipment we needed in the isolation room as far as PPE goes. We needed specific things for nurses: N95 masks, gloves, goggles, gowns, shoe covers. That was what was dictated to us, and those are foreign things really in a school setting. Those are things that we see in hospitals. So, but we made it work. And then there were increasing social emotional needs for everyone. And as you can imagine, many people reached out to their nurse looking for comfort and reassurance in a time of uncertainty. Anxieties were at an all-time high across the board. So nurses found they spent a lot of time comforting students. Students were afraid. All they had to hear was that someone was positive, and they were down to visit the nurse. So there was extra time spent there. I think with the COVID task, I think one of the toughest things was preserving those relationships that school staff, nurses, principals, teachers have long established with their parents. It was tough to preserve the trust there, because there were times when someone may have been quarantined by the health department 2 or 3 times, a student. So that was tough for families too. They had to go to work. They had other things going on. So those were some challenging times. We did have some triumphs, though, in the midst of all that. So we were able to plan and put protocols in place that got us through the year, health and safety protocols. We were able to identify exposures and close contacts in a timely manner. We did provide some effective documentation that helped contact tracing for the Department of Health. Those were some triumphs. Our mitigating measures that we put in place, we saw the benefit of that during those times when the community spread was high. We did not see that in our buildings. We saw it outside in the community. The leagues that continued to play on the weekends and have tournaments, those kind of things, that was where we saw the majority come from. A great triumph, having the PPE that we needed. I cannot say enough about Patrick Snodgrass and the purchasing department and how he was 100% proactive and ahead of the game on every front for everything that we needed, every single thing. And like I said, some of those things like N95 masks and goggles and gowns, those were things back when he was ordering that people couldn't get, and somehow he made it happen. So we were able to start the school year feeling that we could keep ourselves safe, we could keep the students safe. That was tremendous, incredible support. Some more great support came from our IT department. We needed data, lots of data, and lots of ways to document what we were seeing, both in individual student records, for the dashboard, for the community, for the stakeholders, and they were 24/7 available. We'd start a program, didn't work great, they'd tweak it, we'd start over, and they've provided us with all the information and data that we've had that we've reported to the State Board of Epidemiology. So tremendous support. And then additionally, our Community Relations Department, they were the people, once the processes were in place, They were able to get timely notifications home to parents so that they knew what to expect for the next day. They couldn't always get through the Department of Health. So they had information, knowing what to look for, what to do, and to be calm and wait for someone to contact them. So that was helpful. That kept us ahead of the game as well. And then this was actually a time for nursing professionalism to shine, and it did. It really, really did. Everything about COVID forced us to innovate in every way, but I really do sincerely believe that every nurse has the innate ability to adapt, and we did that. It's hard to work in the midst of two public agencies trying to navigate a pandemic. A very odd place for all of us to be, but they did such a great job. We worked together as a team in our district to help break down the CDC and the state guidelines into more understandable language for our school communities. We went so far as to create cheat sheets of information for our administrators to help navigate scenarios and questions that they were bombarded with by the parent community. Being a consistent role model was seen by being proactive, staying calm, demonstrating leadership, providing counseling, and paying attention to the mental health and well-being of those around us. Everybody in the building, everybody on the other end of the phone, just paying attention to what was going on. Strength and resilience was demonstrated by providing social and emotional support to the students, teachers, administrative staff, parents, and community during this crisis situation. I have to say, I am so very, very proud of our school nurses and the job they did. The National Association of School Nurses put out a survey before the opening of school to ask if nurses would be willing to show up and take care of a positive COVID case. And the resounding answer was yes, which I would have been disappointed if it wouldn't. That's our calling. And I didn't even have to ask our nurses that. They showed up, they were ready. Thank goodness they had the supplies they needed, the support they needed, and they did an amazing job of holding it all together. Thank you for supporting them every year and seeing their value, especially this year.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Klezik. Any questions or comments?
If I may comment, I believe this would be a great training module to send to colleges and universities for students that are going into the healthcare field so that they can see how challenging it was and better prepare them to come in. And I don't know if we've looked at it in a sense of those students that are going into the healthcare field to come and, especially with our students, and mirror and mimic our nurses in our education system.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
Mr. Mignon?
Just, it's a question I've asked before, and it has to do with the fact that St. Johns County is one of few counties that have a nurse in every school. Could you, and what I wonder about is those counties that do not have nurses in their schools, how do they manage what is required, especially through COVID? Does the health department take over? I'm just wondering, what's the relationship between the district health department, county health department, and school nurses? Do we have a close relationship, or how does that work?
It's different in every county. All 67 counties do it differently. The statutes are broad, and just that they say that the Department of Health and the Department of Ed will collaborate on how we deliver health services to students. And in our county, we do partner with them. The lion's share of actual providing services falls to the district because we do have nurses in our schools. In those counties where there aren't nurses, the Department of Health actually employs school nurses who come and supervise staff members in the schools and train them to do certain procedures. So we're very fortunate that our staff members, our teachers can fulfill their own roles while we have nursing professionals in the building.
I think it's also important for the community and the public to know that the state doesn't fund our nurses in schools.
Correct.
That this is funded by the St. Johns County school system. The superintendent and the board are the ones that have really pushed for this support, and it comes out of our general operating budget.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So Melissa, I know that it's been a year, and it's been a year for you all as well. In the past, reading over your chart of number of medications provided to students, number of treatments, all of that, and this year I certainly would not ask for that information. But I can imagine that the workload didn't just quadruple. It probably increased, tenfold at least. I know several of our schools actually needed 2 nurses because of the amount of work load that they had on them, and I just wanted to say thank you. I know that it's been a tough year, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mrs. Kledzik, we often, I don't think we give nurses enough credit. I know we applaud the teachers through this whole process, what they've had to put up with, the changes they've had to make, but certainly the nurses fall in the same category. No one really signed up for this, but when confronted with the problem, just came and confronted it and have been there for the kids. So thanks for your leadership and a great job to the entire staff.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We'd like to take a break? Is that what that was? Time out. Let's take how about a 7-minute break? We'll come back thank you, Ms. Kledzik. We'll come back at 20 after 10.
is revised and updated annually, and we do that usually waiting until after the legislative session and making sure that there's nothing statutorily that would require us to make changes in the code of conduct, and at the same time, making revisions and changes as are necessary just because times change, and certainly a significant topic is dress code, and you're going to hear that this morning.
Good morning, board members, Mr. Forson. I do want to start and echo what Mr. Forson had mentioned. Each time this year, we do bring items to the board for updates and revision to our student code of conduct. As part of this, we do send out a code of conduct survey to our staff, school advisory councils. This occurred on February 22nd this year. We did collect feedback through the end of April. That feedback was reviewed with district staff, a representation of our principals, elementary school, K-8, middle school, high school on May 11th. We've also had follow-up with our attorney, Mr. Upchurch, and we also did speak with our deans in our May 4th meeting, all of our secondary school deans with regards to that. So structurally, not a lot of changes, as Mr. Forson said. We do follow a lot of the legislative activity that goes on in Tallahassee, because there may be times where we have to come back in and update. We are following, just a heads up, there is some additional conversation about Cessor. I know we had just recently updated our board rule with Cessor, so I was in a webinar yesterday regarding that, so we could see some things come out of that with regards to reporting, but we'll certainly follow that, and I believe that's on for the June 10th session in Tallahassee, so I'll certainly keep everyone abreast of that. So briefly, if you could look at your packet and just look at page 6, one of the initial recommendations that we have is to add our Department of Innovation and Equity to our district directory, that is for Miss Cynthia Williams, and put in all her contact information. Page 8 and 9, you'll also see that we're adding our 2 new schools, Pine Island Academy and Tokoi Creek High School. We also want to make sure we have all of their contact information in our school directory section. Okay, our next, and actually our last recommendations for revisions of our student code of conduct is the revisions to our dress code section. So if you look at page 14 in your packet, and I will walk you through what we see as some recommendations for notable changes. We certainly want to have some dialogue and questions at the end with regards to that. So to start with our dress code, it's really important that as we move forward, we still endorse a code of conduct that's, and a dress code that supports a positive school climate. Dress code matters should always be addressed, and I've responded to quite a few emails throughout the course of the spring and even as early in the fall that we really want to make sure we're doing it with positive guidance. It's not without intent to embarrass students, and that is very important. We need to make sure we continue to work on that. We need to make sure we continue to get better at that, and that's certainly not the premise of a dress code. We do endorse principal authority and discretion with decisions of appropriateness of attire. We also endorse principal's authority to modify the dress code for special events and occasions that occur at their schools. So we certainly want that to encourage that. And, you know, at the end, before we go through specific recommendations, we want it to be fair for all students. I think Mr. Forson has made comments recently, as well as myself, that fairness and consistency need to be a focus with our dress code, and we certainly will continue to work and strive towards that. So our first piece, if you look at the first bullet under all students, we have recommended adding statute 1006.07, and what that does is it puts in the state statute regarding students are prohibited from wearing clothing that exposes underwear or that exposes body parts in an indecent or vulgar manner. And what that does is it sets an initial standard across the state as that state statute. Our second recommendation and clarification would be to adjust removing immodest from the second bullet and clarifying distracting in character. And distracting in character As you can see in parentheses on your second bullet, distracting in character represents clothing, piercings, and accessories displaying profanity, violence, discriminatory messages, sexually suggestive phrases or advertisement of those phrases, or symbols of alcohol and drugs to tobacco. We don't see those as acceptable at school. They certainly don't support a positive school climate. They're not in alignment with our Character Counts initiative as well. So that would be a recommendation as well. If you move down to the bullet where you see skirts, dresses, and shorts, our recommendation is to move away from the 4-inch measurement piece. And really what we have recommended, it'd be skirts, dresses, and shorts shall not be any shorter than fingertip length or mid-thigh, whichever is shorter. We also believe that gives principals the flexibility to recognize that many of our students have different builds, different stature, and it takes that into account. I've had several conversations with middle school parents regarding some challenges about acquiring garments that fit our dress code, and I think this really takes that into consideration, but again, also gives our principals the flexibility to address those situations when needed. Below that, you'll see our next piece with regards to shirts and tops covering the entire shoulder and be long enough to adequately cover the waistline and not to expose the midriff. Midriff exposure was probably the biggest discussion piece when we met with our deans. They shared that was typically the biggest issue in secondary schools, not so much the shoulder coverage, but the midriff piece was certainly something that was a top conversation with them. And then the final piece for our dress code recommendation would be to move the standards that separate boys and girls, remove them in their entirety. What this does is it presents a dress code under the standards for all students. We feel very comfortable with those adjustments when they're in there. We'll certainly be able to be fair, consistent, and support the dress code without having to separate standards for boys and girls. And with that, I'll take any questions or discussion.
Any questions from the board?
Paul, I know I contacted you about the excessive use of makeup, and I would prefer to have that not in our code of conduct.
Okay. Again, as we present now, we certainly have time to make additional adjustments this board wants to make. We have put our code of conduct out to bid for print, so we do have some time to make adjustments and certainly update. Our goal as well with our dress code is also, at the end, we will put a graphic in our code of conduct that gives parents a good representation with regards to coverage and length, and certainly assist with them with purchasing clothes over the summer and so forth, and also help our administrators as well. So we wanted to make sure we had this meeting first, and we'll certainly get that in there and take care of that. So typically, we're slated for the board meeting in June for approval, but again, certainly, if this board wants to make additional changes, we certainly can do that.
And I think we'll maybe discuss a little further after public comments.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Anything else you have?
No.
Okay. All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll stay up here. Mr. Kinahan, right here.
Sure. All right, let's go to, we have a couple more topics. Early childhood update. Mr. Forson.
Thank you. And our Director of Early Childhood Services, Mr. Brian McElhone, is going to present to you and provide you an update with our early childhood program.
Good morning, School Board. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Superintendent Forson, thank you for allowing us to share. Like many departments and schools, it's been a challenging year, but I can speak on the behalf of early childhood. We've had a number of successes as well, and I'm excited to be able to have that opportunity to share some of those with you. If I could, I'll just walk you through kind of some of the things that we've been able to accomplish this year. Three big ones that we've paid attention to is our Head Start review. and that's something that occurs only once every 5 years. It's our most thorough review, and we recently received our report and our monitoring document back, so I would like to share that with you. We always pay attention to our enrollment increases, in particular at some of our Title I schools, and then the proactive approaches we've taken to this academic year. In particular, we pay close attention to our behavior for students. This year, we had the opportunity for distance learning with pre-K, and we would chalk that up as a success. And then our VPK readiness rates. And we'll go through each of those items with you today. I want to start with the Head Start monitoring review. And as I said, that happens once every 5 years. So it's our most significant review. It is extremely thorough. It encapsulates an entire week where our team meets with the reviewers and discusses every aspect of our program. So what you'll see is there's 6 different areas there. And I just highlighted a few bullets from the report that we received back. The report is very much narrative in nature, so it doesn't go into much very specific things. It just reports what they heard and what they learned. But what I can say at the end of the report, the reviewer met with me afterwards and said this has been the most successful, smooth, and comprehensive report that she had ever been a part of in her 15 years as a reviewer. So we took great pride in that. Didn't show up in the report, but she said it to us, so we're grateful for that. But you can see the 6 areas that are there. Program management, one of the accomplishments that they noted was we use data for everything. It guides all of our decisions, and we include our parents in that discussion. The monitoring and implementing quality education, that's something we consider a success as well. We have ongoing progress monitoring in all of our classrooms, and that's consistent throughout the year. Teachers are reporting on student performance daily, and that's all captured into our system so that we have a very comprehensive picture of how our students are doing and how our teachers are performing. Another area is class, and that's an observational tool. That's the second bullet under there. Class is similar to our Marzano system for observations with teachers, but it's pre-K specific. And it was noted that we are one of the higher performing Head Start programs in the country. Another area is monitoring and implementing quality health services. 100% of our students have a medical home. 95% of our students have a dental home. That's an accolade for our program. Our team works hard to make sure kids are getting all the services that they need. Another great component is we do have a licensed mental health counselor that's available to all of our sites, as well as all of our students, and a behavior specialist. I'll go into a little bit more detail on our family engagement and parent involvement piece on the next slide. But another highlight for the review was our fiscal infrastructure. We have a tremendous working relationship with the finance team, and the collaboration between Gretchen, Mr. DeGudis, and their whole team was noted. They commented that it's a very, very thorough and fair process with lots of transparency. And then our final piece there is ERSI. ERSI is our student eligibility and enrollment. And one of the things that's an unusual and unique circumstance for our program is the fact that we have full enrollment, and we've always had full enrollment. Every one of our families and every one of our children are income eligible. And I've shared before, income eligible means it's a family that's making less than the poverty, under poverty, which for a single mother is $17,420. So a single parent of one child has to make less than that to be income eligible. And a lot of Head Start programs are having a tough time identifying students. We're at 100% enrollment and income eligibility. And we also take kind of a multifaceted approach to getting our families enrolled. We will meet them wherever they need to, whether it's the home, work, or at the school setting. Our biggest initiative is to make sure that they're enrolled and they're a part of our program.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
I notice month by month when I'm looking at your reports, you consistently have a waiting list. Is the enrollment defined by the federal government and you cannot exceed that? Is that why you consistently have a waiting list?
The slots that we receive, we have 135 Head Start slots. We have to fill those with our families that are income eligible first, and then we have a wait list. We can't have an open slot. We should never have one. Now, we say we can't, but we know that there's programs that do have empty slots. We always fill it within a week.
Well, my question really is, you have 135 slots. Is there a way to increase the number of slots?
There is, and we've done that with working with the school district and working with Title I. We've expanded to as many students as possible. And using VPK and Head Start, we try and make sure we have a classroom and a seat for every child. But we still maintain that wait list because it's part of the Head Start regulations.
Okay, thank you.
I mentioned our family engagement and parent involvement. This is our pre-COVID days. In 1920, we were very proud of the number of events and services that we provided. We were offering a Monday Fun Day opportunity for our families every single Monday that school was in session, as well as parent cafes at all of our school sites where we worked with families at their home zone school. And we also had some seasonal events during the course of the year. And you can see prior to COVID, we had over 1,300, close to 1,400 families in attendance for those different events. Another area that we wanted to pay close attention to was our father participation. So with the attendance, those are, a lot of times, those are repeat families coming for multiple events as we have them during the course of the year. The 117 fathers are individual fathers that came to at least one event. And that's something that we'll continue to pay attention to. We want to encourage our fathers' participation, whether it's at the parent cafe or at one of our bigger events. We make sure that we address our dads and we let them know that we're grateful that they're there. So we had 1,400 families in attendance in 1920 and only 48 events. It was cut short. We're looking forward and hopeful for next year that we can have a return to the services we provided prior to COVID, so we can improve and continue on those numbers. And Ms. Slough, to your question for enrolling additional students, we pay close attention to our Title I schools, and that's primarily where all of our Head Start classrooms are. And so we wanted to make sure that we're serving as many students as possible. The very best thing that you can do for a Title I school or a Title I community is to provide access to a pre-K program. So we've worked to do that. You can see that over the past couple of years. We don't have 2021 data because we paused a little bit on our VPK numbers this year to allow for distance learning and to make sure we weren't overwhelming or overburdening our schools. But with our Title I schools and access to a high-quality pre-K program, we know kids that are in pre-K are more likely to graduate on time, more likely to be employed, and more likely to own their own home and car. And that's just by making sure that they have access to programming. And that's what we've worked towards. You can see our numbers down below with the increase in enrollment from 175 to 406 over the past 5 years. This is our ESE side of the house. Early childhood works with VPK, Head Start, and ESE. We evaluate a number of students in our clinic during the course of the year. In 18-19, we evaluated 400 students. You can see in 19-20 we have a bit of a dip with 3 months during COVID shutdown. And then in June we kind of rebounded with, once we figured out how do we continue to do this work, we are able to continue evaluating. This year in 2021, we expect to see about 385 students. Our goal is 400 each year, and we should get close to that. But I want to point out the blue column on the end there. We've also begun writing IEPs for our schools. We found that with COVID and with limited access to the schools, this is an additional way we could help our schools and our families. So we began writing the IEPs. So in addition to evaluating the kids, we're now writing the IEPs for the schools as well. So the third highlight I wanted to bring up was just the proactive approach we've taken to this school year. We found that by staying ahead of the game, we've really been able to allow our teachers to work and our students to learn. And one of the things that I had heard when I first came on with early childhood services was that we were seeing more and more behaviors coming into the classroom, whether it was kindergarten or pre-K. And so as with everything that we do, we wanted to see the data first and see if that was accurate. So we began tracking that, and students that have an SEL delay that warrants early intervention are in these numbers here. So you can see in 17-18, it was 39% of our students. That means they would be eligible for early intervention specifically due to social emotional needs. So that was 39% in 17-18. 2021 through up to May 1st, we've seen that number increase to 56%. Now we can also, knowing current conditions, we would expect that to kind of carry through for the rest of the school year and probably into next year as well. So with tracking students that need that early intervention, we wanted to see if our work was paying dividends as well. So some of the proactive interventions that we put in place was to have our behavior specialists. All of our teachers are trained in conscious discipline, and we continue to work with them on that. Conscious discipline is an adult intervention with child-based outcomes. So we want the adults to understand this is how we respond, this is how we work with kids, and hopefully see the results with our children. And then we work closely with ESE as well as our Title I schools. And the way that we're tracking that right now is with our number of suspensions. We work really, really hard to get kids into school. We want them to stay there. And we try and make sure that all of our problems in pre-K and early childhood, those problems need to be solved in the classrooms. That's where we're best served. So you can see there's been a reduction in the number of suspensions from 22 down to 7 so far this year. And in 18-19, that was when we began with our behavior specialist as well as implementing conscious discipline. Another proactive approach that we took to this school year was distance learning. We are so grateful that the school district allowed us the flexibility to meet our families and our kids' needs. When you think about distance learning with pre-K, that's not a natural fit, and that's not what we want to do, certainly. As I mentioned, our problems are solved and our behaviors are learned and our instruction takes place in the classrooms. But we needed to provide it for some of our students. And so we were able to do that. We began cohorting our students from the very first day. So our teachers had one instructional modality to focus on. You were either brick and mortar or you were distance learning. And we were able to do that by assigning our instructional coach as the distance learning teacher. And then our Title I schools and other schools all kind of collaborated where we would have additional distance learning teachers that was their only job and their only role, similar to what the elementary schools did in the second semester. We did that from day one. And then after the instructional coach, as students began to return brick and mortar, the coach was a support to distance learning teachers exclusively and making sure that their instruction was up to snuff and everything that we wanted it to be. We were able to do that because of what we learned in March. When we first shut down, again, pre-K was kind of, what do we do? Do we just stop services? We began modeling and showing this is what distance learning should look like for pre-K, and then the teachers just jumped in and they took off with it, and everybody was sharing lessons, and that's where we came up with the idea of not just sharing lessons, but sharing children and cohorting our kids. And it was, as much as we want the kids in school, it was a success for us for this school year. Another proactive approach for us is our implementation of the kindergarten readiness. We've always been a high performer. In 18 and 18-19, we were the top-rated district at 71% and 72% of our students being considered kindergarten ready. Now, in this past year, we had 500 less students take the test, and we were at 67% kindergarten ready. And so we know that there's a lot of anomalies and variables in play with the number of test takers this year, as well as the number of test takers in other counties. We did finish 6th this year, which we're not happy with, but at the same time, we recognize some of those counties weren't open that actually outperformed us. So we're not sure how that all comes into play, but we're working towards making sure that we perform well. But if you look at 2020, where 67% of our kids are considered kindergarten ready, that's 2/3. And we want to continue to work on that and improve. Even though we're one of the higher performing districts, we're going to focus on that because it's very important. Kids that come into school kindergarten ready end up being more successful later on in life. And I'll share some more data with you on that in a second. So that kind of leads us into where we're going towards next year and into the future. We have had some successes, and we're looking at our next steps. We do anticipate having additional resources in Head Start, so we're excited about those opportunities, the possibility of having additional seats and serving even more children if that's available to us. We want to continue to expand in our practices, especially with family engagement. We're excited about the opportunities that we've provided in the past, and we're looking forward to the return. We'll continue to focus on our behavior and the needs of our kids social-emotionally. And then this summer, we have conscious discipline training lined up again, a 4-day training for our teachers. And we're also including our parapros, and we're incorporating some of our ESE classrooms as well as Title I schools in that training. So we're excited to be able to kind of continue to branch out and influence our other areas where we feel like we can make a difference. And then finally, legislation and work with DOE. HB 419 was passed this year, which is specific to early childhood and pre-K. I feel very, very fortunate and excited because we'll be able to continue to be proactive because much of that legislation that they put in place, we're already doing. And a lot of it has to do with Head Start. So the progress monitoring that we'll be rolling out will start in pre-K and actually be a continuum through grade 3. Our progress monitoring is actually on a continuum that begins at birth and goes through age 8, which happens to be grade 3 as well. So we feel very, very confident in where we're going with that. The class observation tool that I mentioned with Head Start, that's going to be a component of new legislation in HB 14, as well as practice-based coaching. And some new language that you'll begin to see is early learning through grade 20. And we're paying close attention to pre-K to K transition time. We want to make sure that our kids are transitioning successfully into kindergarten as best we can. Previously, DCF oversaw the Office of Early Learning. Well, this new legislation will have the Office of Early Learning will now become the Division of Early Learning and will report directly to DOE. And we feel good about that because, as I said, a lot of the things that are in place with that new legislation we're already in practice in our classrooms. So some of the financial benefits, and I won't get too much into the weeds here, but the return on investment for pre-K programs is fairly robust. It's over 50 years in research. James Heckman has recently picked up some of the research that was done previously, and he reports back a 7 to 10% annual return on pre-K. You know, we'd all take that as part of our own financial package, but it's a return that we can look forward to in our community. $15,000 invested in a pre-K program equates to $195,000 in savings. That's $12.90 per dollar invested. So there's lots of good data that's available. I put a link down below there, the high scope research and the Perry Project has been ongoing for over 50 years. Every dollar invested in this group of students, at age 27, the return on investment was $7.16. At age 40, that became $16.14. So it's an outstanding investment for our community. We're grateful that the school district has been participating in that for quite some time now, and it's our partnership between Head Start, VPK, and the school district that's made us successful. And why it really matters is the student performance piece. And if you'll reflect back onto the VPK readiness scores that I shared earlier, where 67% of our students were considered kindergarten ready, well, that's 33% that were not ready. And we had 2,200 test takers this year. So of those 2,200 test takers, that means 545 were not considered kindergarten ready. And with that, 75% of those students never catch up. With all the remediation that we're able to provide, K through 12 and beyond, 75% still don't catch up. And if you look at the yellow number there in the middle of that bar graph, or that graph, let's assume that our 33% of students that were not kindergarten ready were only 1 year behind. Well, the likelihood of those students attending a university would only be 12%. That's significant. So being prepared and being ready for kindergarten matters. And it matters to our students, and it matters for the opportunities that they'll have down the road. And that's, whether you attend a university or not isn't the end-all, be-all, but I sure want to make sure our kids have those opportunities after they're 5 years old. So that's kind of why it matters and where we're at. As I said, we've had a good year. We're excited about what we've done, but we're also looking forward to next year as well. Any questions that I could answer?
Any questions from the board?
I have a question. On the conscious discipline, do we bring parents into that learning or into that understanding?
We do. We've actually begun investing. In fact, last March 23rd, we had a parent workshop scheduled for conscious discipline. That didn't come to be, but that's part of our parent cafes. We still have been doing them virtually, less attendance this year, but conscious discipline is a big part of that. We offer one every month. We found that virtual has been working for some, but the in-person piece where you have that dialogue and you're able to ask questions a little bit more, it's better served for our parents. But we've begun that.
And I have a question. Is the rollout, would that also include substitutes, teachers?
For the training,
Yes.
we're doing it during the summer, so it does not require substitutes, but our teachers are compensated for it.
And the reason I ask that is because when people volunteer for the substitute and they've gone into the ESC classrooms, that they're well versed in the conscious discipline and behavior.
I understand. Yes, we would love to include substitutes. The pre-K classrooms do have kind of a consistent group of substitutes that enjoy pre-K more than others may. So that's a great suggestion. I'll work with Ms. Hutchins maybe and reach out to those substitutes that prefer pre-K and see if we can include them. Because we do want consistent language. We want our teachers, and as I mentioned with parapros being in attendance, they're a team. And it takes that team to do the job with pre-K. Substitutes are a part of that, so that's a great idea.
I just want to applaud you for the work that you do. I've long, as this board knows, been an advocate for early childhood education, and I think your data underscores dramatically the value of reaching those children at an early age and sending them to school kindergarten ready. So thank you so much. I know it's been yeoman's work in the middle of the pandemic, and I'm sorry. But you guys have done the very best you can, even there. So I'm well pleased with the data I'm seeing, and as we return back to more normal operations, I just think it'll soar. And thanks so much for focusing on having the dads in attendance at your events, because research after research after research piece shows that an active father in a child's life is a huge boost to success. So thanks a bunch for everything you're doing.
Thank you. We have a great team that I work with, and our teachers are so receptive to everything that we put out there, and we work very closely as a team with our school-based teachers and parapros, so it makes it fun. When we have our summer training, we're all in it together, and we're all working on it together. You don't have that collaboration in a lot of different departments throughout the state. And I know our Head Start program, when I speak with the regional specialist, she wants to send everybody to St. John's to see what we're doing and to use us as a model. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment, if I may. I've been on the Early Childhood Committee for 14 years now, and I started working with Brian when he was principal at Southwoods and got the program really moving in the Hastings area. And much of the success that he's enjoying today is due to his enthusiasm, dedication, and compassion. And that spreads out to the entire faculty and staff. It's been a real pleasure to work with Brian and with his people. Like I said, we meet on a regular basis, and normally we have lunch at the Blue Hen quite a bit. And I just think you're doing a great job, Brian, and I look forward to this year. And the COVID year has really slowed things down a little bit. You know, that was unavoidable, but I think with your enthusiasm, that will surge ahead in the coming months. Thank you very much.
We've kind of hit the pause button on some of our initiatives, but we're ready to pick it right back up. And thank you for, I couldn't remember how long it's been that you've been the Head Start liaison, but you've participated in a number of reviews, and you've been extremely helpful and supportive of our work. And I know Head Start wouldn't be where we are now without your leadership as well, so we're grateful.
So, Brian, let me just add that, as you know, what you and your staff does is very dear to my heart. So I agree with my colleagues. A great job. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, let's move to our last subject, which is Teacher Computer Refresh Plan 2021. Mr. Forson.
Thank you, Mr. Canan, and Mr. Petro, Chief Information and Technology Officer, is going to present to you. As you know, I think this is, fifth maybe? Sixth teacher computer refresh plan for St. Johns County Schools.
Good morning, everyone. I'll give you a quick update on the refresh plan. Do you want to give me the clicker, or you just want to stop it? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Here we go. So this year, and I'll show you the committee makeup that we had, I actually had more of an evolutionary process than we've had in the past, so it really worked out very well. Our first meeting was on March 10th, and we had about probably 3 or 4 different laptop models that we were reviewing with the committee. And we met again. Another model was added based on the outcome of the first one. 15th had yet another model added, and then 2 more meetings after that. The final meeting on May 10th is when we came to the top 3 models there: Microsoft Surface 4 laptop, a Dell Latitude 5320 2-in-1, and a Lenovo L13 ThinkPad. Here were the folks that were on the committee, and we picked principal or assistant principal and a teacher a year or a rookie teacher of the year for all those schools for each group. Included curriculum, and we had 3 folks from the IT department, including myself. So we met 5 different times in the process over 2 months to come to the decision that I'll share with you here in just a second. Just for your information, this will be the 6th computer refresh plan that we've performed since 2006, 9, 12, 15, 18, and now 2021. So I started the first one, and now we're on number 6, believe it or not. The last 3 cycles, we had Lenovo machines. One of the benefits of that particular brand that we followed over the last few years was a self-maintainer program, which meant we could get priority on parts and we can get priority on tech support, and it made life easier fixing machines. And you'll see we ended up with another machine getting the self-maintainer program again as well. So this was a recommendation back in 2018, Lenovo L380 ThinkPad. Those are the specs. I won't go over all those for you, but that's what the teachers have had for the last probably 6 years, close to 6 years with that very similar model. Kind of move along fast. A few things that the committee that I briefed kind of early on was the COVID-19 impacts on laptops was huge. Most of the screens and most of the chips are made in Asian countries, Japan, China, Malaysia. Several different countries are I would say, the largest producers of most of the computer components. So 2020 put a huge demand. I don't know if you remember, one of the other briefings that I provided. One of the articles said there was a 5 million laptop shortage in the United States when distance learning kicked into full gear last year. So that, we still have that. And from Reuters, it says shortages will not ease until next year. So that was one of the things we had to consider, and that's why I put that bottom note. Even though we picked a model, and we picked a model based on what we were successful with, and I'll also show you teacher survey results that we did. But just because you want it doesn't mean you can get it. That was kind of the prevailing. So we had to pick a machine that met all the requirements that we wanted and was in something within a reachable range. And that's where we ended up on this particular refresh. Here are some of the goals. We wanted to stay less than 1,000 per device, stay within our budget of $3 million, improve upon the model that we've had for the last 3 years. We want to keep a long warranty on the devices, so we've kept, that's been a standard. We will do a refresh, keep a 3-year warranty on the devices, and at the end of the 3 years, those devices will stay at each school where they are and provide more student stations. And if there were staff that were not part of the refresh, they could be used for staff or they could be used for student stations. So they had a mix of uses for the machines, which will occur again this year when the new refresh machines are distributed. So we did a teacher survey, and the purpose of this survey, and you'll see the questions that we asked, we wanted to find if there were features of the machines that we had purchased that we could take the money for those features that weren't being used and put them into the features that they wanted, and that's what I'll show you here in just a second. So here was a timeline. We wanted to order in May or in June, and back on the 11th of May when you had your board meeting, there was an item in there. We placed our order for this refresh on May 12th. We'll calculate the teachers at each school. Once we get all the schools settled out, we'll ship the quantities to each school. We'll receive them in August or September. That's why we had to kind of scramble to get the order in 2 weeks ago now, in May. Even with a May order, we have a late August expected delivery. In the years past, we had 2 or 3 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks tops. Now we're looking at 2 to 3 months, maybe even 4 months getting machines in. We'll image the machines as soon as they arrive here in August and September, and then our plan is to distribute them when all the teachers come back to start the new school year. We'll have a 1v1 with each of the techs at each school. They'll take their documents off their existing L380 or L390, set them up on their new machine. We'll collect the new ones, provide those back, or we'll keep those at the school, and the school can redistribute those for either students or staff who don't have them. All right, so here was a teacher survey, 1,057 responses, so out of approximately 3,000 teachers, a little bit more than a third responded, and this was on the touchscreen. So how many of the teachers used the touchscreen? And I kind of put some summary notes over on the right side there. So 92% said, I use a touchscreen sometimes, often, most of the time, or always. So from my perspective, when we see 92%, that's a feature we want to keep. So that was one of the things that was on our list. We want to keep the touchscreen. That was a new feature probably 6 years ago on laptops that we purchased. So we wanted to keep the touchscreen. The next one was the use of the pen. And believe it or not, almost half of them never touched it. Probably at least that same number didn't even know there was a pen there. So that was in the category, okay, maybe we won't spend money on a pen or a touch surface because it wasn't used as much. Again, trying to put the most of the money towards the features that were the most desirable. If you have any questions along the way, just holler. The next one was on the Yoga form factor. That's the screen that flips all the way around to the back. And this was even lower. What is the percentage of the time they flip the screen all the way around? 41% said sometimes. Only 13% says often or more. So we knew the pen and yoga were something we could give on if there was a better model, better screen, better performance. Storage was the last one. Do you have enough storage? I'm sorry, no, that's the next one. This is on what would you improve? And almost every year that I've done this, the prevailing highest value that's always here is I want more performance. So we had a Intel i3, probably a generation 2 processor in those. So we know we wanted to try to get an i5 or an AMD processor that's the next level up, several generations up as well. So that was on our list. We want to make sure we get a faster machine. Teachers always appreciate it. I don't know of anybody who doesn't appreciate a machine that boots up faster and processes faster. And then this is the question on storage. 95% have enough storage. So we knew, okay, we don't need to buy any more, put any more dollars in storage. There was plenty of storage there. So we kept it at the current value. So we got all done. Here's the list that we wanted to make sure we followed. 13-inch screen, there were some teachers who said they wanted larger, but the majority of teachers were fine with the 13-inch screen. Some teachers wanted lighter weight, so if you got a bigger screen, you increase the weight. Full high definition or better was also there. Touchscreen, if you notice, that was one of the things on the list. Everybody was pretty hot on the touchscreen, which I would agree. Improve the processor. So the new machine that we picked is the next generation up. Well, the next level up and several generations higher, which is an Intel i5 processor. Same amount of storage, same amount of RAM, but a newer processor, and then a brand new wireless card. When I say a new wireless card, this is pretty much the latest standard, 802.11ax, and these are also the new Wi-Fi hotspots that we're putting in schools are all 802.11ax, which is a faster capability of Wi-Fi card. So we're in the process of upgrading schools, and I don't know if you recall from one of the other prior presentations, we're using E-rate money to fund a stack this year, and we'll use E-rate money to do a stack of schools next year, all upgrading their Wi-Fi to that latest standard. So we want to make sure the laptops that we bought for the schools weren't below the standard of the Wi-Fi equipment that we put in the new buildings, or even really all buildings. We want to make sure we had a TPM chip for security because we encrypt the hard drives on these laptops as we always have. Make sure it has a webcam. Most of them have 2 microphones now and improved webcams than the prior model. And then the last one, if we had one with a pen or a screen that could be pen capable, that would be a plus. So we started out with about 5 or 6 laptops, and before it was all over, after 5 meetings, we looked at 9 different models from 3 different manufacturers. So we looked at Lenovo, which we've, again, used in the last few cycles. We branched out to Dell, and those are the different models we looked at, a 3301, a 5320, 2 different variants, and a 7320, all trying to get pricing in the same rough specs area that we had targeted. And then completely new to the mix, we reached out to Microsoft. They have a super high-end Surface Laptop 4, so that one was in the mix. We've never looked at a Surface laptop before, so it was nice to look at that one. And I'll show you the specs and how they all came out. That one's a super high-quality device. Had a few drawbacks. We also looked at a Surface Go. Didn't quite meet up. It was a little bit too much. The screen was a little bit too small on that one. There's always, the question came up from you all, where are these things made and where are these companies based? So I got a slide on each of the vendors. Here's Dexys, or Dell, based in Texas. And if you read there, this goes back to the original, 95% of the manufactured products are from Asian countries that you see listed there. Microsoft, you know, that's US-based. They're in Washington State. This was an article that came out last year. Until now, most, if not all, Microsoft-built computers have been made in China, and they're expanding to Vietnam. And then last company that we looked at, we've been using Lenovo. They're incorporated in Hong Kong. Most of their equipment is made overseas, but they also have a pretty good plant in North Carolina that's also now shipping and producing equipment. Again, I just put that in there because there were some questions on where they're made and where their companies are headquartered. So I know there's a lot on this slide. I'm just going to kind of zero in on a few things. Each time we met, this got updated with new information and models added. So the top model that was selected is this Dell 5320, a Latitude 5320. We looked at a 180-degree screen, which was a matte screen. It was not as desirable. And then we got a 2-in-1 Yoga, which I'm going to, Mr. Forrest, if you pat, this is the model that was that's selected. I'll let everyone take a look at it. So that was the model that the committee ended up selecting. all the stats in the middle, without spending too much time on this, are very, very similar. The model that ran very close to this was the Microsoft Surface Laptop 4. Very, very high-end, super nice machine. But what really turned the tide is this section in orange. The Microsoft Surface Laptop only had 2 ports. And if you look at the ports that are on the Dell, what do our teachers plug into in the classroom? Most of them plug into a panel, which is an HDMI connection right here. So if you look on that laptop, Kelly, you'll see that one's even lighter. It's smaller. It has the same screen size as the current model, faster processor, faster bus speeds. At any rate, that one has a number of ports on it, 2 USB-A, 2 USB-C, and 1 HDMI. And that HDMI was the port that kind of was the one that broke the straw. And the committee selected the Dell 5320 Yoga 2-in-1 for that reason. The other factor was price. That one came in at $965, and the Microsoft came in at $995, and then we had to pay $26 for an adapter. And the teachers' concern, and we left this up primarily to the teachers, 4 teachers that were on the committee, because I was loving this Microsoft laptop, but I'm not in the classroom and they are. And their feedback was, we're going to lose the adapter or misplace the adapter, and I'm going to be chasing over that. And now I don't have an adapter. Who's going to pay for it? And all those questions. So that was in the price. The price was also an important factor. And for that reason, you can see kind of the other notes. The other models weren't as favorable as the top model that we selected and actually ordered almost 2 weeks ago. Here are the features of the model that you're looking at there. New Intel Core processor, about 30% faster. All flash storage, which is super fast. The new Wi-Fi card that matches our access points we're putting in schools. This model ended up being pen capable. We didn't have to have that, but it turned out that both of the 2 models that we were looking at were pen capable. The vendor in the deal shipped us 100 free pens, so we're going to distribute those to the teachers who need it the most. And if schools want to purchase a pen, they're very inexpensive and they can use the pen on these. This is also the screen that flips all the way around. That wasn't something we had to have, but it came with it in order to get the pen capability. This one includes a 3-year warranty, and what was a bonus on the Dell was it has the battery is also included. So if the battery fails in the first 3 year, it's immediate replacement from the factory. And the other thing that was really nice on the maintenance side that helped kind of sway us towards this one has a self-maintainer program. So that means our techs get qualified on fixing this machine. Then they can change components. We can order parts for it. We'll get it quick. We'll get those parts fast. And what we've been doing with Lenovo is when we do a warranty repair, we actually get credit. They send money back to our repair fund, and I buy more parts when machines fail in schools, whether they're student machines or staff machines. I use that fund from the work that we do. We get funded for. They're small amounts, but there might be $30 or $40 or $50 for a repair that we do. Saves a lot of time and energy. We use that money and we buy more parts and fix more machines with it. So it's worked out beneficial, and kind of happy we're going to continue that with Dell. Questions?
Any questions or comments from the board? All
I
looks
like
good
it.
to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think we're good, Mr. Petro. Okay, let's now move to public comments. So we're going to have public comment. Before we do, let me make a few comments. I think what we're going to do is the folks that are here today will go first, and then we'll go to the online folks that want to make a comment. We're also, apparently there's a few students here, we're going to call on them first. Before we do, though, you know, it's really important to hear from you all. I'm not even sure, I'm looking now, it looks like a lot of you are here to talk about the dress code. And I know we've had some news regarding the yearbook at Bartram. I just want to start by saying that, you know, we have 40,000 students and over 2,000 employees, and we make mistakes. And in this particular situation with the yearbook, I think Mr. Forson publicly acknowledged yesterday that was a mistake. That was not sanctioned by the district or even the school, and so it was unfortunate. But we live and we learn. And so regarding the dress code, I think the same thing. We have to be a board that is flexible and respond to changing time and changing culture. That's why it is important to hear from you. I realize the issue probably relates to not just the policy, but the enforcement of the policy. And I feel confident in saying that there's no way this board or this district wants to demean any child, any young woman. We want it to be fair and equitable to boys and girls, young men and young women. And so that's the goal. Having said that, we do want to hear from you, so let's start with Eliza D. Eliza, before you start, let me say I'm supposed to say a little piece here that sort of gives the sort of the protocol for the comment. The listening public is encouraged and welcome to address the school board during its workshop. In order to be sure everyone has an opportunity to be heard during this virtual workshop and in the arena workshop, please observe the following procedures. Time may not be passed to another member of the public. No one speaker is allowed to speak for more than 3 minutes. When you begin your comments, please state your name and your address. This is necessary for our records. The board members are here to listen to you. This is not a time for debate, and the board will not take any formal action on your comments, but the board may refer the matter to staff for a report prior to the board's next meeting or some meeting in the future. The school board is committed to civility and decorum in the conduct of its meetings. Please assist us in maintaining a civil and constructive meeting environment by confining your comments to the issues and refraining from disparaging or rude remarks. At this time, we will open the floor, and we will start with Eliza.
Thank you. My name is Eliza Dysert, 47 Ashler Drive, St. Johns County, 32259, Florida. I am a sophomore at St. Augustine High School, and I would like to say thank you for letting me speak. I am very fortunate to be at St. Augustine High School, and Dr. Graham has been open to discussion and changes to the dress code. However, it needs to be changed at the district level. My sister attends Bartram and has not been given the same opportunity to voice her concerns. The dress code is designed to be punitive and shames girls. The fact that 78% of violations were issued to females proves that this is the case. The culture the dress code has created is one that provides boys that they have power over girls and are not responsible for their actions. My sister, who attends Freedom Crossing Academy, is in 6th grade. She has had her male peers tell her that she must go to the principal's office because she has a hole in the knee of her jeans, making my sister feel discouraged, embarrassed, and shamed for her body at such a young age. This pattern continues in high school, deteriorating a female's mental health and self-worth. Please create a forum in each school to provide our solutions. My genuine question is, why do you believe that a visible shoulder is not accepted in the new dress code? I also believe that the enforcement of the dress code is one of the main issues and must be consistent for every student. It should not be humiliating or biased in its execution. Teachers and staff should be trained on proper handling. I think the #1 school district in Florida can do and should do better. I look forward to continuing the discussion on dress code to eliminate the inequality it creates among students' education. And again, I thank the school board for allowing me to voice my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Eliza. And now we'll have Riley O'Keefe.
is Riley O'Keefe. I live at 40. Thank you. Hello, my name is Riley O'Keefe. I live at 403 East Teague Bay Drive, St. Augustine, Florida, 32092. I'm 15 years old and a freshman at Bartram Trail High School, and I've come to speak with you today in order to shed light on an important issue at Bartram Trail. This matter is much larger than photoshopped yearbooks or dress code sweeps. It's the way young women's bodies are viewed not only by the administration and the district, but by the world. Schools should be our safe space, and by imposing the current dress code and only editing young women's bodies, you are reinforcing the idea, that our changing bodies are something to be ashamed of. Not only is the wrong idea being sent, but the implementation of the dress code has become the distraction. In regards to the yearbook, the standard senior attire for young women does not follow the dress code, and their photos have remained untouched. This is evidence to support how teachers and administration continue to cherry pick how the dress code is applied. As a young female student, I don't feel safe or focused in my learning environment. I'm constantly worried that I will be pulled out of class and punished for my attire. I'm currently wearing the outfit that I wore on picture day. My family and I see nothing wrong with it, and according to the administration at Bartram Trail, I am in dress code. This gives the school no right to edit my photo. Mr. Forson, yesterday an article mentioned you have 4 daughters, but that does not mean you completely understand a young woman's experiences. You also mentioned yesterday that you thought it was a shame we were speaking about these photos, and I think it's a shame that this is what it's been seen as like the main thing. That's not what this is about. We've been trying to get this on the agenda for months, and the media was our last resort. Now this has become an international issue. The current situation is unjust, unwarranted, and unconstitutional. It is unjust because it is making young women feel insecure and uncomfortable. It is unwarranted because it sexualizes young women's bodies, and it's unconstitutional because young women are treated differently than young men. The new changes to the dress code are moving in the right direction, but it's not enough. I think a committee of kids who experience the effects of it would help make a dress code appropriate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Riley. And the next is Zoe Iannone.
Good morning, thank you for having me. My name is Zoe Iannone, and I'm a freshman at Bartram Trail. I have a 4.0 GPA, and I've never been in trouble. I've never violated the student code of conduct. My yearbook photo has been edited to cover my body. As you look at me right now, this is the exact outfit I was wearing to picture day. When you see me, do you think my outfit is immodest? I did not receive a dress code violation the day of the yearbook photos. I never received a dress code violation any day that I wore the same outfit to school. So why does the school now say that I was in violation of the code of conduct on photo day? Why do they say that we were out of dress code as a justification for their actions? As a female students, we do not feel safe at our school. Your policies empower those who have desired to target, shame, and humiliate girls. We are subjectively judged for being immodest, revealing, and distracting to boys. There is evidence everywhere of double standards, bias, and discrimination. The message is loud and clear from the school. Our bodies are a problem, and that is the most important thing about us. If that were not true, why did the school look at my yearbook photo and see something sexual that should be publicly shamed instead of a student with a perfect GPA and a perfect conduct record? Again, I was not out of dress code, so why was I targeted? I was targeted because I am a girl. I was targeted because of your sexist policies and your empowerment of a culture of harassment, intimidation, and body shaming of female students as a priority. Our government grants us equal protection under law to receive an education. Title IV of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 authorizes the Attorney General to address equal protection violations in public schools when the basis of discrimination is sex or gender. The Educational Opportunities section addresses sex-based discrimination, including sexual harassment and harassment based on not conforming with gender stereotypes. When you pull female students out of class for subjective dress code harassment, when you distract us from our learning environment, and when you publicly body shame female students and humiliate us, how does this impact our right to equal educational opportunities? I think you are in violation of Title IV. And I am asking you to make a permanent change, beginning here and now. And I am tired of being harassed and humiliated when I'm trying to learn, and nobody has apologized to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. And I think that's the last of the students. So I'm going to move forward unless someone raises their hand. So Taryn O'Keefe. After Taryn, there's going to be Amanda Emery, and then Kevin O'Keefe, then Emily Lemos, and then Tammy Whitaker.
Good morning. I'm Taryn O'Keefe, 403 East Teague Bay Drive. I'm part of a large group of concerned parents and students in St. Johns County, and I've been trying to come up with solutions amicably for this matter for some time. We as a group have followed all recommended paths to hopefully get a reasonable, non-sexist change to the dress code. We have received little to no response. I personally have made several calls to the board and was eventually told that Mr. Forson's schedule doesn't permit for parents and their pet projects, quote unquote. This lack of communication or concern continued. No communication from the school or district after the March Bartram Trail High School debacle that was widely covered in the local news. No formal response to the yearbook debacle until the issue made national and international news. Since this situation, our school has been first page featured news stories in multiple outlets such as New York Times, Washington Post, Fox News, and many, many, many others. The responsibility character pillar mentions accountability, and in my opinion, this district has not taken accountability for either one of these egregious violations against our female students. To note, the process, as I've been told on numerous occasions, SAC members provide feedback to the principal, first filter. This goes to a single man in the district who then unilaterally decides what is presented to the board and to change what he sees fit, second filter. Okay? Then goes to the board for a vote with very limited opportunity for public comment. The failed process has become clear when I received a copy of the proposed dress codes that will be presented today. These changes are no better, and in many ways worse. These changes allow for more leverage and disproportionate enforcement. In my opinion, these changes are a slap in the face to every single female student in St. Johns County. I have 2 at Bartram Trail High School. I'm in utter disbelief that even with local, national, and international coverage, this is the best that St. Johns County can do. After consorting with other districts in the state, it was made clear that the vote on this matter has a self-imposed deadline of June 8th. I object. This is not okay. This matter needs a district-wide advisory committee, a town hall special hearing during non-core business or school hours to get thorough feedback from students, administrators from all over the county, from teachers and community leaders, parents and students. As I have said in this meeting before, I implore you to do right by these students. Take your time and do it right. Let's not repeat this next year. I will not have it for my 2 girls. I'm over it. It's been going on since 2nd grade. They're 9th and 10th now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. O'Keefe. Next is Amanda Emery, and then after Amanda, Kevin O'Keefe.
Good morning. Thank you for having us this morning to have this dialogue. My name is Amanda Emery. I'm a product of the St. Johns County School District. I attended school in this building. I went to then to W. Douglas Hartley, Murray Middle School, and graduated from St. Augustine High School. Mr. Forson, you were my teacher, my coach, and my mentor, and you are an outstanding mentor, and I thank you for that. Unfortunately, I'm here before you today because I do not believe the same empowerment and support that I received is existing today. The empowerment and the support that you and Principal Blunt and Coach McGraw and others gave us is not what my daughters are experiencing today. And so I have 3 daughters who have either graduated from Bartram Trail or are attending Bartram Trail today. My 3 daughters have earned GPAs greater than 4.0. They have captained varsity sports teams. They have been homecoming queens. They have brought home historic state championships to Bartram Trail High School. They have elevated the school's statistics by earning acceptance to 2 of the top-ranked universities in the nation. They have never been in trouble, one time ever. And most importantly, I probably should have mentioned I'm here this morning because I'm Zoe's mom. So forgive me for not making that connection. That's why I'm here this morning. And so my children have never violated the Student Code of Conduct. They've earned accolades, scholarships, and awards for outstanding character performance and leadership. Since 2015, my 3 daughters have incrementally attended Bartram Trail and have held up their bargain to be accountable every day and all year long. As parents and students, we're accountable to schools. We must ensure our students are present, productive, prepared, and positive contributors to the learning environment. In turn, schools are accountable to us and to our children. They are accountable for providing a learning environment free from intimidation, bias, discrimination, and humiliation. We have been accountable without fail. Me and my 3 daughters. Without fail, we've been accountable to the school district and to Bartram Trail. It's time the school and the school district demonstrated accountability to us, and most importantly, our daughters. A public school culture of shaming and sexualizing young girls is not acceptable. A public school culture of empowering these behaviors and failing for years to respond to the concerns of parents and students, long before it becomes the nation's top news story. This was the top news story in the nation yesterday. This wasn't just in the news. It was the #1 story in the news yesterday in our nation. And that's embarrassing. When bias is so blatantly evident that it's documented in photographs in the annual yearbook, you as a school and a system have a much more serious problem than poor editing and a solution of offering refunds. Zoe was never given a dress code violation on this day or for this outfit that she wears today ever. She was never given any indication that her outfit did not meet standards. She worked hard to look nice, and she felt confident on that day, newly incoming hair and all, as a reminder of the disease that Zoe battles every single day. She picked a lavender sweater and a pretty necklace to help her not be mistaken for a boy. So now, imagine being a high school freshman girl and you're headed for your yearbook photo. You have no hair because you are managing a disease that has no cure and no treatment. Just think about that for a second. She went into her freshman high school yearbook photo with peach fuzz and a buzz haircut because she had lost all of her hair, battling a disease in the months prior to this. And then after a year of biased dress code intimidation and shaming related to subjective determination of girls that are immodest and distracting to boys, the school decides to humiliate Zoe in the yearbook that's been circulated to thousands. The school looked at her and saw something sexual instead of a 14-year-old girl with a 4.0 GPA and a perfect conduct record and internal strength that most of us can never muster. I'm asking today that an apology be made to the female students. An admission of mistakes made is clear. A commitment to learn from this and evidence of systemic and permanent change is the only acceptable solution moving forward, and that changing a few words in a dress code does not change the intent or the ability for those who have bias to subjectively and overzealously apply and enforce that dress code to target girls and shame and embarrass them. Thank you again for hearing our thoughts this morning.
Thank you. Kevin O'Keefe.
We've been attempting to work with the board for some time now by contacting them over and over again to make change to this dress code, which is sexist, and everything the kids have said. The pivot I'd like to take right now is I've listened to every presentation that's been made on all of the other subjects, and when the Code of Conduct presentation came, it was obvious that there was an immediate change. There was not a lot of meat in the presentation. There was no data presented as to what changes will be made to the Code of Conduct, and the one thing that I want to hone in on that is that if that data is not there, if those specific changes are not there for what is going to be done to the dress code, then I believe the board does not have that data as well. So I suggest that there be a committee, as has been requested, that can work with those who are going to make the change to the dress code. I also suggest that the June 8th deadline for the for the vote be postponed unless that is presented to the public and feedback from the public, as in this forum, and also with a forum of either students, students' parents, teachers, be able to work with the other side. I would love to see an advocate from our side over on that podium over there to present the data that, excuse me, the laptops and other things have been presented today. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next is Emily Lemos.
My name is Emily Lemos, and I live at 41 Parkfront Lane, St. Augustine, 32095. I've had the St. Johns County dress code lurking in my mind since 2007. My oldest was about to start kindergarten, and I was worried when a middle school mom complained how hard it was to find shorts that were in dress code. I asked her about it, and she said, "Oh, you don't have anything to worry about. You've got boys. They don't have any problems. You'll know they don't sell clothes for boys that violate the dress code." I was really relieved, and I filed that away. Fast forward 14 years to today. My daughter is about to enter middle school. Her body is changing, and she's really uncomfortable with it. Okay? She's mostly wearing hoodies and leggings, sometimes gives into the heat and wears an oversized t-shirt. But what if she got more comfortable with her body? What if she found the confidence to wear a more fitted shirt that she felt good in? And maybe it showed more than a teacher thought was appropriate. What would being told that that shirt was inappropriate do to her? It would tell her that everything I taught her about the changes in her body being normal and acceptable was wrong. Is that the message we want to send to our kids? I'd also love to know how many girls who are fighting eating disorders are sent spiraling into a shame-fueled relapse after being dress-coded. On a more pragmatic level, we've all had that moment when our kids grow seemingly 6 inches overnight. Sometimes you don't make the connection right away that it's time to buy new shorts. Or you do, but you still have to send them to school wearing something, and it's 95 degrees outside. So you allow them to wear the shorts that are a little short. The old and proposed dress code will take a kid who is either a little uncomfortable because their clothing doesn't fit right, or maybe one who is comfortable and blissfully unaware that their clothes are bothering someone's modesty standards, and will make sure they are very uncomfortable. We hear all the time that students must not be late because every minute of class is important. Why then are girls being sent away from class when their classmates aren't bothered by their clothes? The trouble with the proposed guidelines is that they continue to be subjective and not Florida-friendly. Does mid-thigh mean halfway between the knee and the hip bone, or the bottom of the buttocks? Who measures that? And how is it anything less than sexual assault? Merriam-Webster defines revealing as tending to expose more typically hidden parts of the body. If it is generally shown outside of school, it is not revealing to show it inside the school. What I would consider revealing would not be what others would consider revealing. Who gets to decide that, and on what basis? The biggest question is, what are we trying to accomplish with a dress code? If we want to avoid distraction and enforce the board's definition of modesty, maybe we should set recommended guidelines. Straying from the guidelines should only be brought to a student's attention if the clothing is indeed causing a distraction. If class can carry on, there is no need to say anything about a student's clothes. Generally speaking, teachers are much more distressed about clothes than students are. And our students have much more to worry about than how much skin they are showing. Once, showing your ankles was scandalous. Times change, and St. Johns County needs to change too, just as Mr. Kanem said. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. This card is Tammy Whitaker.
Good morning. My name is Tammy Whitaker. I live at 7659 Las Palmas Way in Jacksonville, Florida. And I'm here on behalf of SAGESPA, the non-instructional union. I wanted to thank Gretchen for her presentation today. And what amazes me, and I'm not sure why I believe this, but the Florida legislature still doesn't understand how to properly fund public schools. It's really sad. I don't know why it continues to amaze me, because they continue to do this every single year. They do not fund public schools appropriately, especially in the counties that are continuing to grow, like St. Johns County. It's very concerning. Students, teachers, staff, parents, everyone that's here today need to continue to contact legislators to let them know that funding needs to be better for public schools, especially growth school counties. As you begin, school board members, building your budget for the 21-22 school year, I'm requesting that you take a long, hard look at the salaries for your lowest paid employees. Conveniently, the Florida legislature has forgotten the hardworking employees who have kept the school district afloat, your custodians, your bus drivers, all of the folks that keep the schools running. Because their focus, in my opinion, and shows with the current legislation that has been passed and was passed last year, has been focused solely on raising teacher salaries and giving bonuses to teachers. Please don't get me wrong. It is needed, it's been needed for years to raise the base salary for teachers, but non-instructional staff need to be looked at as well. St. Johns County School District has some major concerns with vacancies within this district with non-instructional personnel. There have been many positions that have sat unfilled all year long in the EBD classrooms, custodial positions, extended day, food service. It's just, we can't continue in that manner. But I think, and I know this school district well enough, that we can really do something about this. We can build morale, which is definitely needed. We can recruit and we can retain the best in this county. We can do all these things together if we put competitive salaries as a priority for non-instructional staff. I know that you will do what's right, but I am hoping as you continue to build this budget that you really keep in the back of your mind that these are the people who have and love working for this school district. They don't get to come to these meetings. They only have people who are advocating for them like myself, but I know you know that. I know you know that they worked very hard, and they continue to work hard. I look forward to negotiations this summer with Kathy Weber and her team, and I look forward to a successful session. Please keep that in mind as you build your budget for the next school year. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you, Mrs. Whitaker. All right, we have one more card, Nancy Trey.
Hi, Nancy Trey, 25 Crawford Court, St. Johns, Florida. Is that better? When I started driving through my middle schooler's car line at the beginning of this year, I was shocked to see all of the female students wearing long pants in the heat when all of the male students were wearing shorts. When I asked friends and neighbors, a story started to unfold about widespread discrimination and harassment of female students throughout our entire school district. The yearbook scandal is just the latest example. This is far more than just one teacher. Members of our community have made the difficult and brave decision to start putting these stories out there because no one here would listen. And this sexism has been hurting our kids for a long time. I have been working on this issue every day for the past 8 months. I have heard horrifying stories from students and parents all across the district. I have heard from students who have been embarrassed, ashamed, harassed, and robbed of valuable class time. I have heard from parents whose students have special health considerations, and they are forced to make difficult decisions between abiding by a sexist dress code or dressing in the best interest of their health on a hot day. I have heard from parents who are scared of retaliation from teachers and administrators if they speak out about how their student was treated. I have heard from teachers and administrators who hate the dress code and know that it is sexist, but they are scared to speak out for fear of jeopardizing their careers. I have heard from my own 8th grade son who has seen girls treated unfairly at his school more times than he can count. I have heard from my confident 5th grade daughter that she's scared to start middle school because she's afraid of the code and of being humiliated in front of her friends. The proposed dress code changes, the ones that were presented to us for the first time late yesterday afternoon, are not good enough. They are unclear, inconsistent, and don't solve any of the issues that have been plaguing our district. The fingertip length or mid-thigh rule is unclear and unnecessary. And what is wrong with shoulders and tank tops? Why can't the district adopt a code that is modeled after the excellent guidelines introduced at Switzerland Point Middle School earlier this year? The proposed revisions do not provide our students with district-wide protection because individual schools still have the authority to set up rules that harass students and unfairly target females. The new dress code needs to clearly state that enforcement must happen privately and protect the rights and the dignity of all of our students. We need to finally get this dress code right. We need more time to allow for community input and feedback. Why are we trying to rush these changes through when parents and students have not had enough opportunity to learn about them yet or respond? I understand that the intent of the dress code is not to shame students or treat them unfairly, but we have overwhelming evidence that is what's happening, and it's been happening for years. It is not enough just to intend the dress code to be fair. You have an obligation to make sure that it is actually fair and not just on paper, in practice at our schools. The proposed revisions are not the answer. Let's get this right and really fix our sexist dress code. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Trey. There's no other. I wanted to thank you all for coming today and your patience today. Your comments are definitely being heard. There's nobody here that wants to see any young woman shamed or embarrassed, and so I promise you that this will be addressed. We are now going to move to the online folks who would like to comment. And Ms. Wilcox, could you please provide them some direction?
Thank you, Mr. Kinnan. If you have logged in online and would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand symbol, which is located at the bottom right hand of your screen, and listen for when I invite you to speak by announcing your name. You will hear an audible beep when your microphone is unmuted, and then again when it is muted. We ask that you speak clearly, state your first and last name, and spell your last name. For those who have called in, and state your home address as well as the topic you are speaking about. For those who have called in and not connected to the meeting via application or web browser, you may raise your hand by pressing *3. You will receive a confirmation click telling you your hand is raised. Please listen when I invite you to speak. You will hear an audible beep when your microphone is unmuted, and then again when it is muted. We ask that you speak slowly, stating your first and your last name, and spell your last name. State your home address, as well as the topic of your comment. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Mike Stevens, go ahead.
Hi, good morning. My name is Michael Stevens, and I live at 653 Chandler Drive. I just want to let the board know that the majority of parents think you guys are doing a great job. And while your job is difficult, we appreciate you and what you've done to make the county the best in the state. Your proposed dress code changes are on point and fair. Unfortunately, you can't please everyone, and some people feel that they are louder than everyone else, they can get their way. Instead, they are just getting their 15 minutes of fame, and their 15 minutes are up. The clothes worn at your meeting today, if you look at a side-by-side with the yearbook photos, you can see a drastic difference in the neckline and what is shown. And that explains why the school did what they did. Again, thank you for all you guys do, and just know the silent majority of parents do support you and the great job you do for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Next caller.
Emma Lauer, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Emma Lauer. I live at 825 Los Caminos Street, St. Augustine, Florida, 32095. I do apologize for any noise that may be in the background. I have 2 small children in the room with me. My husband recently retired from the U.S. military, and we chose this county as a place we would call home. We have very few relatives here, but we chose this area and this county specifically because it was the #1 district in the state. My kids are young. I have 4 of them. My oldest is in 2nd grade. I also have a kindergartner. She's my oldest girl. She frequently wears shorts and tank tops to school. Her undergarments are always covered and no private parts are ever shown. No one has ever said anything to her or me about the appropriateness of her clothing. At some point in their school journey, the district and administration sexualizes our young girls and determines that their bodies can no longer be shown. There are some, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. There are some points in the dress code changes that I think still need a deeper look. And I agree with some of the other parents that it would be great if there could be a committee formed to help make changes that are appropriate for our school children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lauer. Next caller.
Skylar Kyle, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Skylar Kyle from KYLB. I live at 254 Johns Creek Parkway, St. Augustine, Florida, 32992. I'm, I guess, no longer a senior at Bertram Trail. I was a senior this last year. I have a 4.49 GPA. I have never been in disciplinary conduct. I have never been dress coded, but I have only worn shorts to school 3 times, and the entire time I have been in St. Johns County. And I've been in St. Johns County for the entirety of my schooling. The first time I wore shorts was in middle school, and I wore basketball shorts because I had lacrosse practice after school. I was sent to the deans because a teacher in the hallway thought my basketball shorts would be too short. I was in 7th grade. Now, in high school, I have only worn shorts twice. One sophomore year in homecoming, and one junior year in homecoming. And in junior year, I had a teacher tell me I was likely going to be dress coded when I was wearing a pair of shorts that my mother also owns. If my mother can wear them, I do not see how it could be inappropriate for me to wear it to school. I have also seen that the dress code is entirely unfair, not only to women, but to people who are not skinny. Skinny girls at the school, and no hate to them, they can get away with wearing crop tops or tank tops, and no one responds to them. But if a fat girl wears shorts that are slightly too short, she is caught immediately. I do not see how this new dress code will be any better because the wording is just slightly changed. And I am hoping that you guys will actually enforce the dress code fairly to everyone, regardless of gender, regardless of size, regardless of how they present themselves. And this is not just a district issue, this is on the school level too, because there's no accountability for the teachers who are enforcing this disparity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kyle, for your answer. Congratulations on that terrific GPA. Next caller.
Tatiana Kovaleva, go ahead.
Hello, thank you for letting us. My name is Tatiana Kovaleva, my name is Kovaleva, and I live in 707 Sorbet Drive, St. John. I'm happy to have an opportunity to have my daughter study in a great school, district of St. Johns County, and that's why it saddens me a lot that the district receives national, local, and multinational coverage, not quite for languages, but for its fundamental problems with the dress code wording and implementation. I will start with implementation, and the thing that I need should be included into the dress code part is a precise procedure to eliminate all possibilities of single-handed decision and of violation on any person's behalf. And this procedure should be established to minimize loss of instructional time and the first impact on kids' emotional well-being, because now it totally depends on the person who is dress coding the people, who is dress
Test, test, test. Okay.
Okay. Senior Director of School Services, Paul Apatonozi, is recommending major revisions to dress code policy, but a freshman at Bartramville High School stood up in front of the school board today telling them that the #1 school district in the state should and can do better. Two students, Riley and Zoe, are actually still inside the board meeting going on right now. They both wore the shirts that they wore in their yearbook photos, which were edited. Someone's gonna get off the elevator.
I try to control my levels. Yeah, that's all right.
Mic check, 1, 2, 3. Senior Director for School Services recommending major revisions to the dress code policy, but a Bartram Trail High student says, okay. I'm actually gonna, I'm gonna stand probably right about here, that just in case the elevator does open. Is this okay, or is this way too close? Because I can stand farther back. Okay. What do you think? That's fine. Back? I'll stand here just in case someone comes. Stand by.
Well, they are still in the public comment section of the meeting, which is where the board and superintendent are hearing a lot of the same backlash that they've heard over the past several days and really the past couple of months, as you mentioned. This dress code issue here in St. Johns County has been part of the conversation for most of the semester. Now, before the public comment section, the school board and the administration presented its proposed changes. It knows that the dress code needs to be updated, and it suggested changes. We brought those to you last night. But in addition, they added, we still do endorse a code of conduct that they say supports positive school climate. They also said it's never been their intent to embarrass any students. And then they said the administration is still endorsing
The Senior Director for School Services here, Paul Abatonozi, recommending major revisions to the dress code policy, but a Bartram Trail High School freshman stood up inside the boardroom today and tells him that the #1 school district in Florida can and should do better. Now, Riley and Zoe, two Bartram Trail freshmen, are still inside right now. The board meeting still going on. That's how much public comment there is today. And they both wore the outfits that they wore in the yearbook photos that were edited.
They're calling for a much bigger overhaul than what's been suggested. They want the district also to push back its June 8th deadline. That's when administrators are supposed to really lock in any of the changes to the code of conduct for the year, to do it every year. And what they want that pushed back, they want a special committee, they want public hearing for a much bigger overhaul to the dress code. And again, this follows, as you said, significant backlash over earlier this year and how the dress code policy was being enforced. And then last week we saw the story that got national attention, Bartram Trail High School.
Some of those recommended revisions include removing the term modest, defining the term distracting, moving away from that 4-inch measurement requirement for skirts, shorts, and dresses, and instead recommending to use not any shorter than fingertip length or mid-thigh, whichever is shorter, as the language there to recognize that different students have different body types, and removing the standards that separate boys and girls in the dress code policy, standards making for all students included together. Now, there's a lot of pressure on the school board to make a decision quickly, even one parent asking them to do it today or before the next school board meeting, but the plan is to vote on this at that next meeting, June 8th. In St. Augustine, Leah Shields, First Coast News, on your side.
Yeah. Sorry, folks. Leah over here.
Ninth grade students, Riley Keefe, as well as Zoe and yes, they wore the same exact outfits that they wore on the yearbook picture days. And those are, again, the same exact outfits that they say they have worn at least 100 times without receiving a
that we're looking at it in a deeper way. With that, should we go to your issue before I have Mr. Forson close? Let's have Mr. Forson close. Okay.
Thank you. And I also want to thank every parent who came, every student who came, everyone who was online. I think there are several things that, and one of the students said it early on. Here's the disappointing and frustrating thing for me, and I know for principals, for teachers, for moms and dads, and certainly for students. But it's when dress code becomes such a distraction that it's a bigger deal than the day of learning or the test or the assessments or whatever's on the horizon. So we've got to flip. We got to flip that. We've got to move forward and get out of that kind of world and environment. I do believe, and I've said it earlier, I do believe a dress code is important. It is reflective of an organization. It is reflective of an educational institution. However, I heard it enough times today to certainly take it to heart and take it personally, in that the subjective nature of what we have today is lends itself to inconsistent treatment and inconsistent enforcement. And so I just really want to get away. I hope that we move forward. The committee, the idea of putting committee together is great. I think there are a couple of things that came to mind when I listened to people today, and that is, the first piece of it, what repeats itself, the gender difference. We've got to get all. That's another thing. We have to move away from gender descriptions and gender definitions, and it's about children. The other piece that move away from we get caught and we're responsible for it. The parent's not responsible for it. It's an enforcement and a consequence world. Well, how about let's move it to an expectation and a positive world of, this is how we dress, this is what we do, this is who we are. We're students of Bartram Trail High School or St. Augustine High School or wherever we are, and we dress the way we dress because we're proud to be in that environment with our peers, with our adults, with our teachers. You have a lot of teachers really care about kids. I would tell you, as a former high school principal, the last thing I wanted to do, and I know that Mr. Phelps and I have had a number of discussions. The last thing we really want to do is spend this inordinate amount of time in a world that shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be that. We've had horrific things, incredible things happen during the course of this year, that dress code should not be up, flipping itself above that. So I own that. We will get better. We will get better in that area. I think some of the things, and one of our board members mentioned already, when Mr. Abatonozzi shared, this has been an ongoing process, as Ms. Barrera shared. And sometimes, we live in a world that I want a response today for the question I asked yesterday. And it's not always that way. To get to the best answers, it does take process and time. It's not rushed. What was presented today was not a rush. Today was an accumulation of a lot of time and effort to say, here's the draft. Now, here is what I would say was difficult. If I was a mom or dad, well, I didn't, unless I asked for it yesterday or I asked for it, I really didn't know how it read, what it looked like. So I think one of our responsibilities coming forward is to produce a draft that everyone can see, touch, and respond to as we go, before we come to you with a final product. And certainly working with some discussion from committee members or other members first, making sure here's the draft where we are, get that input and move forward. So I'm learning, and we're going to get better, and we're going to do it better than we have done it in the past. And as I said, I know people don't like me to say that. The intent is pure of heart of most of the people in our system, most all of them. It's not always played out that way, and that's what really matters, is how it plays out and how people feel when they walk away from it. So we will continue to work on that. That's a major issue that shouldn't be. but we're gonna treat it as a major issue right now because we need to. What was huge today, I don't want to minimize, is the presentations that you received today. The budget update is really critical for us moving forward and us having resources in the right place, doing the right things. The nurses update, I didn't say anything at the time, but here's what's really been hard for them. The volume and the amount of communication they've had to do with parents and children that is just completely beyond what they've ever been asked to do. They've been the frontline people in communicating what's happened during the course of COVID, during the course of quarantines, during positive cases. Huge, huge thanks to all of our nurses and that entire department for their work and effort. We're doing really good stuff. Early childhood is really moving along in the right direction. The business side of things it is what it is. We do the best thing to be as frugal as we can, yet protect by insurances and things of that nature. And last but not least, the computer refresh plan is an important plan that provides consistency for instructional tools for teachers. And I'm very proud of the work that we're doing there as well. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Canan.
Thank you, Mr. Forson. So now back to this one bit of housekeeping. Mrs. Slough is proposing that our July 6th board meeting, because we have 5 Tuesdays in June, be slide back to June 29th, and that is okay, good on my calendar.
It's good on my calendar.
Okay. Mr. Coleman?
I have no problem with that.
No problem. Okay. Mr. Forson, is that something we can do? Okay. All right. It's been a long meeting. Thank you all for your patience and your input, and I will adjourn the meeting.